And when they do, I hope they rise above and beyond some of these differences and realize that what unites them is bigger and stronger than anything that could divide them.
South Africa is once again voicing firm support for Western Sahara's right to self-determination. The bond between the ANC and the Polisario Front dates back to the anti-apartheid era, and this year marks 46 years since Morocco occupied the disputed territory, an occupation that South Africa still deems illegal.
We condemn without equivocation violence by any party, for it feeds animosity rather than encourage reconciliation. In the same spirit, we call for a peaceful resolution of the conflict in Western Sahara. We shall do our best to assist where we can.
South Africa stands by the principled position of the right to self-determination for the Sahrawi people, as enshrined in the Charter of the United Nations, as well as the Constitutive Act of the African Union.
The UN Secretary-General has welcomed the signing of the Declaration of Principles between the government of the Democratic Republic of Congo and the M23 movement, which took place in Doha, Qatar. Spokesperson for the UN Secretary-General, Stefan Dujarric, has more.
The Secretary-General commends this important step, which opens a pathway towards lasting peace and security and the return of persons and refugees. He urges all parties to ensure the swift implementation of the commitments undertaken and expresses his appreciation to the state of Qatar for its facilitation of this process. We remain committed to supporting efforts towards peace, protection of civilians, stability in the DRC, in close collaboration with national, regional, and international partners.
Right, let's take a look at this story now.
The UN Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs has warned that Sudan's humanitarian crisis is worsening, with cholera spreading at an alarming rate. Just yesterday, a Sudanese Doctors Association in Tawila, that's North Darfur, reported over 1,300 confirmed cholera cases in the span of a single week.
Tawila, as you will recall, is hosting several hundred thousands displaced men, women, and children, the majority of whom fled deadly attacks in the famine-stricken Zamzam camp near Al-Fashir in mid-April. Our partners on the ground have been struggling to keep pace with the growing needs in the area, and the challenges will only increase as the rainy season sets in. Local and international partners have set up cholera treatment centers, but the current capacity is far from sufficient to cope with the rising caseload. Additional resources are needed immediately. This includes more treatment centers, mobile health facilities, ambulances, and waste management tools.
Canada's Finance Minister François-Philippe Champagne, speaking in South Africa during the G20 finance track, warned that global trade is being redefined by tariff wars, mainly triggered by the United States. He confirmed that from August the 1st, the US will be imposing 30% tariffs on South African imports.
For us, we said, and I think it should be the same for South Africa, you try to engage, negotiate the best possible deal. At the same time, you want to protect the worker and industry, and you want to build in your country. Prime Minister Carney has said something which is very inspiring to Canadians, that says that we can give more to ourselves than anyone can take away from us. And therefore, in Canada, this has meant to build our country, build infrastructure, build a more resilient economy, and diversify our trading partner. We can look at export when it comes to the agricultural sector. We talked about energy. Canada is a big energy superpower. We talk about nuclear. What can we do to help with the electricity grid here in South Africa? We've been talking about innovation as well, because this is a big innovation hub, whether it's in the medical field or other field that we can develop together.
And so that's how we come to the end of today's edition of the Africa Roundup, a quick snapshot of the stories and events that played out in the past 24 hours. All right, stay with us. Coming up, Asanda takes us to East Africa and a deeper look at some of the stories that have been significant in that region. That's all coming up shortly.
Africa in Business on Channel Africa.
The president of the Arab Bank for Economic Development in Africa, Beda, Dr. Sidi Ould Tah, he is vying for the presidency of the African Development Bank, the AFDB. He positions himself as a fervent defender of economic integration and structural transformation on the African continent.
Well, I do believe that I have a 360 view of the development challenges in the continent with my experience from both the supply side and the demand side. But more importantly, my vision is to bring on board all the stakeholders and to have a holistic approach for the development of the continent and to develop partnership across the continent and outside the continent, bringing all the stakeholders together to work for one goal is to make Africa great for life and livelihood of the African population.
Bringing the African markets into your home. Channel Africa, the African perspective. Wake up to the essence of the continent. Rise and shine on Channel Africa.
Let's take a look now at some of the stories making headlines in the East Africa region, and we speak to journalist and team leader at Grassroots Journalism Kenya, Dennis Beru. Dennis, always great catching up with you on these sessions. How are you on this particular Tuesday?
I'm well, Asanda. Hope you are doing good in South Africa. How is Joburg?
Yes, it's good. It's a bit cold, but it's good. So we're doing well.
Wow.
Yeah. So let's start then there in your country of Kenya. We spoke about this briefly yesterday. Kenyan human rights activist Boniface Mwangi, who was set to appear in court yesterday, known for his leading role in anti-government protests, he was released on bail yesterday. Let's talk about that.
Thank you so much, Asanda. Of course, his release comes 2 days after he was arrested and charged with unlawful possession of ammunition. And it is alleged that he played a role in the deadly anti-government protest that we witnessed in June. And remember, Mwangi was charged by police on Friday, and this after he was arrested over the weekend. And as per the evidence produced in court, he was accused of possessing unused tear gas canisters, that is a 7.6 2 millimeter blank round, and 2 mobile phones, a laptop, and some notebooks. And when he was speaking to reporters in the courtroom, he told reporters that he was grateful that the court decided or agreed to release him on bail. And remember, Kenya has been facing anti-government protests across the country since last year. And remember, these all started when we had the finance bill and later to demand the resignation of President William Ruto. And his arrest is not new because Boniface Mwangi, 2 months ago, he was arrested in Tanzania alongside his fellow activist from Uganda, that is Agatha Tuawure. And since the protests broke out, the police have been accusing human rights for the involvement in the protest. And we've seen some of the activists arrested and some even tortured.
So this June 25th protest that he's allegedly having been involved in, the allegations are also that he played a financial role in these protests. What evidence is there of this?
Yes. some of the allegations that are, of course, it is true. It was alleged that he sponsored some of these protests, but these didn't come out clear as evidence in the court. But it is based on the stance he has been having against the government. And of course, Boniface Mwangi has been at the forefront, leading a number of activists in the country since the protest broke out. And remember, we have seen some politicians accuse him of receiving money from foreign civil society organization that he used them to fund the young people to go on the street. So it is not clear whether these evidence were presented in court, because that is a very strong allegation that someone is funding a protest. And I know I had some lawyers who are representing him saying that it is very unusual for someone to fund thousands of young people who were seen on the streets across the country.
So staying in Kenya, but moving on to another individual now, Dr. Kennedy Odede. He's a Kenyan social entrepreneur, and he's been awarded the 2025 UN Nelson Mandela Prize. Who is he, and what does he do?
Thank you, Asanda. Dr. Kennedy Odede is a prominent social entrepreneur and the founder of the Shining Hope for Communities, SHOFCO, which recently we've seen its work across 37 of the 47 counties, and winning the prestigious 2025 UN Nelson Rohilala Mandela Prize for his life-changing services to communities across Kenya. Kennedy Odede, we all know, he started he was born in the slums of Kibera, which is now the second largest slum in Africa. And after spending so many years on the streets as a street boy, he found someone who took him and funded his education. And coming to Kibera, we've seen most of his service has had, or he started in Kibera, and to a point he had to launch some of the activities, some of the services across the country. And remember, SHOFCO does quite a number of programs in 37 counties. Some of them they range from education, they range from clean water in the informal settlement. We've also seen one of the largest circles in the country, that is a SHOFCO circle, and also one of the largest social networks across the country. That is the Sun. We've seen the impact that SHOFCO has had on the Kenyan people, and being recognized at the UN alongside the Canadian Brenda Reynolds is one of the achievements that he has had. And remember, during his speech, he said that, of course, the award is a rubber stamp for his dedication to empowering the community. And he also talked about, or he pointed out on the hopes of planning to have a similar network across the country. And remember, SHOFCO has supported over 10,000 girls in schools. He has trained over 1.5 million youth in leadership. He has employed over 4,000 young people across the 37 counties, without forgetting job creation that stands at around 180,000 for young people in Kenya.
Well, it's a well-deserved award there. We salute and congratulate him, Dr. Kennedy Odede, recipient of the 2025 UN Nelson Mandela Prize. That ceremony being held in New York as part of International Mandela Day. Let's go to Uganda now. Ugandans wanting to travel to the U.S. Will be met with a rise in visa costs. What is this $250 visa integrity fee for most non-immigrant visas?
Asanda, this is crazy. I know most of the people, not only the Ugandans, but the people from East Africa and the less privileged, countries will not afford what Trump branded as one big, beautiful bill that was signed into law. That is on 4th July. 2025, and of course it is expected to take effect later 2025 or early 2026. Of course, we've seen young people who are trying to pursue education in the US. Of course, the $250 integrity visa fee. Most Ugandans will not afford these. And remember, the current rate stands at 3,820 Ugandan shilling. That is half of the $250 that the new bill will see. People will have to pay. This is a one-time. Remember, this is 5 times Ugandan minimum monthly wage, and nearly the double cost of existing visa fee, which stands at 185 US dollar. And of course, together, Ugandans applicants will be expected to pay. That is around 1.6 million Ugandan shilling for visa compliance and a fund enforcement operation against the visa overstay status and also the violation. And of course, we'll be having a conversation from the US authorities that some of the immigrants who go to the US, they overstay and violate the employment. Of course, these high number of the visa that we've seen, it is just a way to caution the immigrants who violates the law and also overstays in the US.
But it's a very steep fee. If it's double the current visa fee and it's more than Uganda's minimum monthly wage, they're basically saying Ugandans don't come to the US. Let's move to the Eritrean president now, Isaias Afwerki, who's issued a warning to Ethiopia against renewed conflict. How are relations between Eritrea and Ethiopia as currently things stand?
Yes, of course. Eritrea President Isaias Afwerki issued a stern warning to the neighboring Ethiopia, cautioning against the possibility of the renewed conflict tension might escalate in the Horn of Africa. And remember, the relationship between the two countries have remained fragile since Eritrea's gained independence from Ethiopia in 1993. And a bloody border war from 1998 to 2000, which left thousands of people dead. And although a peace agreement was signed in 2018, we've seen the mistrust between the two nations as persistent. And according to the Eritrean government, the latest strain in the ties stems from Ethiopia's renewed focus on securing to a sea port, which is now, we have seen it has been a long-standing strategic objective for the landlocked country. And these remarks was directed to the Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed, and President Afwerki affirmed, warned that the Eritrea will not be easily overpowered by Ethiopia, which has a larger population of over 130 million compared to Eritrea's 3.5 million people.
Well, let's hope that there is no renewed conflict and the tensions as they are do not escalate and there's some solution to that. We're completely out of time there. Sorry to cut you, Dennis, but we need to go. So thank you so much again for your time and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you so much. Have a good day.
Thank you. Dennis Beru is a journalist and team leader at Grassroots Journalism Kenya, giving us stories making headlines in East Africa. Let's get our news headlines now. It's 6:31, and we say good morning to Miss Buthelezi, that is Nolutando Buthelezi.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective.
Botswana's President Duma Boko has called for unity between South Africa's Economic Freedom Fighters Party and the African National Congress following an invitation to attend the first Botswana National Front conference. South Africa has had to import vaccines from neighboring Botswana to respond to the outbreak of foot and mouth disease. This was revealed by Agriculture Minister John Steenhuisen during the foot and mouth disease indaba. And at least 27 people were killed after a Bangladesh Air Force training jet crashed into a college and school campus in Dhaka. I'll have more details at the top of the hour.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective.
Right, it's time for a first look at what's been happening in the world of sport. And at the desk this morning, good morning, Figile Lingwati.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Good morning, guys. We begin with football news this hour. This is what will be happening. Former Banyana midfielder Pinky Machekane says the defending champions need to play to their own strength when they face Nigeria in the WAFCON semi-final tonight. Banyana's title defense hopes were kept alive after their hard-fought 4-1 win in a penalty shootout against Senegal in the quarterfinal on Saturday. Machekane admits that it won't be easy to disrupt the Super Falcons' Mission X, but believes Coach Derzi Ellis's charges have the right capacity to retain the championship.
10 times WAFCON champions, and obviously they're looking to win their 10th a title here. But I don't think South African Banyana will just sit back there and just let the Nigerians take this one. We are the defending champions, and I think over the years we've shown how capable we are as a nation, as a team. We've been in an encounter with Nigeria, a few times, and the last time we've beaten them. So it means this is possible for us.
The 41-year-old says this year's edition has been quite challenging for Banyana and believes that they should stick to their style of play if they want to go all the way.
But Banyana's strength, it lies when it comes to putting the ball on the ground and, sharing that ball and frustrating our opponents. That's what won us games previously, but just Rebia Bolomofati connecting those passes and finding those spaces behind the opponent's defense line.
Morocco's home-based national team is hitting peak form at just the right time, recording a second consecutive friendly win ahead of the 2024 Total Energies African Nations Championship CHAN, with a strong 2-1 victory over fellow CHAN contenders Burkina Faso in Kenitra on Saturday. The youthful Atlas Lions are shaping up to be serious title contenders. The result follows Morocco's 6-0 thrashing of Chad in June and confirmed their growing momentum despite limited preparation time. 3 African countries will apply to become associate members of the International Cricket Council later this year. Burkina Faso, Mauritius and Burundi are all planning to submit the relevant paperwork with the ICC Members Committee before December's deadline. BBC Sport understands that the trio had hoped to be considered by the governing body at this year's ICC annual general meeting. However, none of the three countries were able to progress further with their application due to various administrative queries raised by the ICC. And we end with tennis news. Venus Williams will make a return from a 16-month layoff at this week's Washington, D.C. Open. The 7-time Grand Slam singles champion saying she is not sure of anything beyond that. 45-year-old American overcame a serious health scare last year and after enjoying a visit to Wimbledon decided to accept a wild card into the U.S. Capital Tournament, the first hard-court turn-up for the U.S. Open. For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, please do send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +2711 714 4459. This is Channel Africa Sport with me, Figelele Ngwadi.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African perspective. This Mandela Month, we honor his belief that education is the most powerful weapon to change the world.
Education is one of the most important weapons in a country.
Catch us on DSTV Bouquet 802. Your morning companion with the stories that matter. This is Rise and Shine on Channel Africa.
Let's find out about a new deal in a lithium project in the Democratic Republic of Congo as we say good morning to Nosipho Zuma. She's got our business news, the first for this Tuesday on Rise and Shine.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
Thank you, Asanda. Good morning. In your business news, the Sawa, Australia-based AVZ Minerals, which holds a majority stake in the contested Manono lithium project in the Democratic Republic of Congo, says a new deal between Kinshasa and US-backed Cobalt Metals to develop part of the project breaches an existing international arbitration order. The DRC government recently said that it had signed an agreement with Cobalt to jointly develop the southern section of the Manono lithium and tin deposit, one of the world's largest untapped sources of the battery metal. Bundle Headbush reports.
The agreement signed by the DRC government and Cobalt commits the Congolese government to support Cobalt's plans to acquire and develop the Rochadura deposit at Manono. This effectively positions a California-based firm as Kinshasa's preferred partner to unlock the stalled project. Meanwhile, AVZ Minerals is currently locked in arbitration with the DRC at the International Center for Settlement of Investment Disputes over the government's failure to grant them a mining permit. For Channel Africa Business, I am Bundle Headbush.
Morocco Central Bank Governor Abdelatif Jouari says the bank is exploring the use of its own digital currency for peer-to-peer and cross-border payments. A central bank digital currency is controlled by the central bank in contrast to cryptocurrencies that are usually decentralized. Elizabeth Mapari has more.
The Morocco Central Bank says it's been working with the IMF and the World Bank to assess the payment system impacts of its central bank digital currency. They are also exploring the use of digital currency for cross-border transfers. Cryptocurrencies have been banned in Morocco since 2017, but the public continues to use them underground, circumventing restrictions. The bank says a draft law on crypto assets is currently under review by the country's finance ministry.
South Africa's Standing Committee on Public Accounts says the dissolution of the Board of the Road Accident Fund will not distract its work of conducting an inquiry into the affairs of the entity. Transport Minister Barbara Creecy recently dissolved the board of RAF, citing persistent governance and operational challenges that have beset the entity and significantly undermined its ability to discharge its statutory mandate. SCOPA has already adopted the terms of reference of the inquiry into allegations of maladministration and financial impropriety. Among other things, that RAF chairperson of SCOPA, Songezo Zibi, says the dissolution of the board will not affect the inquiry.
The Standing Committee on Public Accounts has noted the dissolution of the board of the Road Accident Fund by the Minister of Transport. Our position is that the inquiry will nonetheless continue because we are not investigating individuals. We are investigating the crisis of financial management and mismanagement of funds at the Road Accident Fund. And that work needs to continue. And to the extent that there are former and current board members or staff who need to appear before the committee, they will either be invited or subpoenaed to appear.
South Africa's Minister of Small Business Development, Ndoro, has described the opening of the first ever Global SME Startup 20 ministerial meeting in Johannesburg as a historic milestone. Ndoro underscored that the country's role as the first African presidency of the G20 on the continent presents a unique opportunity to shape global priorities through the lens of Africa and the Global South. Minister Ndoro also acknowledged the important leadership of Brazil and India in advancing the Startup 20 engagement, affirming South Africa's commitment to driving innovation, inclusive growth, and greater political recognition for small businesses worldwide.
This marks a historic milestone as the first African presidency of the G20 in the African continent, an opportunity to shape global priorities through lens of the Global South and of Africa in particular. We take up this responsibility with deep appreciation, recognizing the exceptional leadership of Brazil before us, as the chair of the Startup 20 did mention, and of India, who came before Brazil, in launching and nurturing the Startup 20 engagement group.
And finally, Portugal's Galp Energia says it expects to find a partner to develop a promising oil discovery offshore Namibia. Now, this has the company raised its core profit target for the full year after a better-than-expected performance in the second quarter. Galp raised its targets for adjusted earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation and amortization this year to more than $3.1 billion, up from a previous $2.9 billion forecast. Your financial indicators: $1 in Nigeria is trading at 1,513 naira. In Botswana, it's 13.30. Kenya, the dollar is trading at 128 shillings 71, and in Zambia, it's 23.08. The BRICS countries: $1 in Brazil is trading at 5 real 579. Russia is 78 rubles 44. India is 86 rupees 14. China at 7 yuan 17, and in South Africa, $1 is trading at 17 rand 68. $1 is trading at 74 pence to the British pound and 85 to the euro. Looking at commodities, gold is trading at $3,390 and platinum at $1,447 per ounce. The price of Brent crude oil is at $68.64 a barrel. Now, for any business news stories you would like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa Business, I'm Nosipho Zuma.
Business News on Channel Africa. The African Perspective. Mornings made better with Peter and Asanda on Rise and Shine. Weekdays 6 till 9 Central African Time on Channel Africa. G20 in Africa, exclusive to Channel Africa.
It's 6:44 Central.
So it's time for the G20 fact of the day. The G20 began as a forum uniting the world's major economies, both developed and developing, to tackle global financial and economic challenges. Now, since its first Leaders Summit in 2008, it's grown into a key platform for addressing not just economic issues, but also urgent global concerns such as climate change, health, and development. And that's your G20 fact for today.
G20 in Africa, exclusive to Channel Africa, championing Africa through solidarity, equality, and sustainability.
6:45 Central African Time. Was I that excited to tell you what time it is that I jumped my colleague over here? But let's talk about this story now. Small to medium enterprise issues will be discussed at this week's Global SME Ministerial Meetings, which will form part of the G20 Leaders Meeting in November. South Africa's Minister of Small Business Development, Stella Ndabeni, says these engagements will help find ways to create a healthy business environment for these businesses. Notando Makutulela reports.
Solidarity says FlySafe has refused to negotiate in good faith to resolve the pilots' strike. The union says the strike, which was initially planned for only 1 day, has been extended to 14 days after FlySafe decided to lock out the striking pilots for an extended period. Solidarity's Deputy General Secretary, Helgard Cunha, says apart from the wage dispute, pilots have raised the alarm on the demanding schedules, which leave them fatigued while negatively affecting their family life.
It's not actually the truth. I mean, if they spoke to us, they would have contacted the CCMA. The intentions of our one-day strike was initially not to disrupt or to limit disruptions and get SAFE back to the negotiation table. Their response was a 7-day lockout. So even if our members want to return to work today, they can't because they are locked out. They are locked out for 7 days, and that lockout is on condition that they must accept the current offer on the table of 5.7%. If they don't accept it within the 7 days, the lockout will be extended for another 7 days. So our strike action, an extension of our strike notice for 14 days, was as a response to that.
FlySafe insists that it has been negotiating in good faith under a process led by the CCMA. Chief Marketing Officer at FlySafe, Kirby Gordon, says while the airline is prepared to negotiate, the union's demands are unreasonable.
The reality is that's a 10% increase on basic pay. Pilots' remuneration is quite complex. It's nuanced. There are flight pay things, there are allowances that are considered, there are bonuses. And actually, when one looks at the full cost to company increase that they are demanding, it's 20.1%. Now, these are individuals who are well paid. They are competitively paid compared to other airlines. They're in the top 1% of earners. A captain will earn between 1.8 and 2.3 million rand a year. And so it's understandable that a 20.1% increase is absolutely economically not viable.
Gordon says a defensive lockout is a legal mechanism available to employers in case of a strike.
That's how a lockout ordinarily works. So a strike is a no work, no pay scenario, and obviously everybody has the individual decision as to whether or not they choose to participate in that. And so in a lockout scenario, the option is invited to the individuals to say you are welcome to come back to work if you accept our conditions, or you may participate in the strike. So there's really no kind of fundamental difference to the employees either way. So they would be striking and unpaid or locked out and unpaid.
Gordon says FlySafe's roster system allows pilots to see what their month looks like to make the necessary arrangements and is similar to most airlines locally and internationally. I'm Naledi Ngobo in Johannesburg.
That report by Naledi Ngobo talking about the South African trade union Solidarity, which says the first day of its 2-week strike has affected FlySafe's operations, and after the airline confirmed that 26 planes have been grounded amid the pilots' wage dispute. The flight cancellation was imposed despite the airline's earlier reassurances that operations will not be affected by the strike. Solidarity has rejected FlySafe's 5.7% offer and is demanding 10.5% for the 2025-2026 financial year. FlySafe has argued that its pilots receive a competitive salary even by international standards. So that's what you just heard there on the air.
Channel Africa and you have got something in common. The thirst for knowledge.
South African Broadcasting Corporation, SABC Sport, brings you Chasing the Sun. And this is a powerful 5-part documentary series about South Africa's national rugby team, the Springboks, telling the rousing tale of their path to redemption and ultimate World Cup glory in 2019. Starting on the 13th of July at 7:30 p.m. Central African Time on SABC2. Tune in every Sunday for the highs and the heartaches and the heroics that made rugby history. Stream each chapter on SABC Plus as well, anytime, anywhere, and no subscription is needed. Don't miss Chasing the Sun this Sunday at 7:30 p.m. Central African Time on SABC2 so that you can be there when history shines.
Darubini ya Afrika na I am Henry Shakif.
Hawa wa Afrika Kusini wenye asili ya kizungu ambao wamepewa ukimbizi huko nchini Marekani. Je, nini chanzo cha wao kuomba ukimbizi nchini Marekani?
Wenyewe wajaomba ukimbizi. Kuna shirika fulani inaitwa AfriForum, shirika mbili za wazungu ambao wanatetea haki ya wazungu hapa, AfriForum na Solidarity. Hao walienda Marekani kufanya kampeni kusema kwamba wazungu wananyanyaswa hapa Afrika Kusini, na walizofanya hiyo kampeni serikali iweze kuwafuatilia kujua nini ambacho mnasema kwamba mnanyanyaswa.
Kuna namna ya wao kwamba wamepoteza uraia wa Afrika Kusini, na je, endapo Trump akamaliza muda wake madarakani, uhalali wao wa kuishi nchini Marekani ukoje?
Itakuwa vigumu, kifupi itakuwa vigumu wenyewe kupoteza uraia wao.
Darubini ya Afrika 11 kamili hadi 12 kamili majira ya Afrika ya Kati.
Es-tu préoccupé par quelque chose? Es-tu passionné par les questions qui comptent? As-tu une voix qui mérite d'être entendue? Eh bien, nous avons la plateforme parfaite pour toi. Téléphone-nous ou fais-nous un WhatsApp au +27 66 408 87 42 et nous te rappellerons. Sois dans la conversation.
Salut Channel Africa, ici Beno le diamant rouge et Binal Sport depuis le Cameroun, le pays des lions. Voilà.
Sois dans la conversation. Il ne s'agit pas seulement de parler, mais c'est ta chance d'exprimer ton point de vue, de partager tes opinions et de t'engager avec une communauté qui valorise ton avis. Suivez-nous sur les réseaux sociaux, visitez notre site www.channelafrica.co.za et préparez-vous à partager vos points de vue sur Channel Africa, la perspective africaine.
New day, new stories. Start your morning right with Rise and Shine on Channel Africa.
A South African non-profit organization called Waves for Change is making headlines with this new program called Take 5, designed to help children and adolescents cope with toxic stress through sports, arts and recreational activities. Already, Take 5 has been adopted by key partners, including the United Nations Children's Fund, or UNICEF, in conflict-affected countries like South Sudan and Somalia. Although the program officially launches this month, it has been in development and testing for the past 5 years. Sisi Sekhalo engaged key role players and brings us more on this story.
The Take 5 model is a simple 5-step teaching framework. It is used by trained facilitators or sports coaches to create safe community spaces where children and adolescents growing up in high-stress environments can play, be, and grow. The international manager of Take 5, Derek Daniels, says they work with adolescents and children from underserved communities.
Here's what the research actually says, that 90% of adolescents live in low and middle income countries. And a third of that population, that adolescent population, they're faced with what we call really multi-dimensional poverty. In other words, it's not only poor from a financial point of view, but they have lack of education. They don't have access to resources. They really struggle with life in general. And very often the children are referred to us by schools, by social workers, sometimes by courts, because they have problems with society and dealing with social issues. And we run these programs with them in Cape Town. We do it on the beach using surfing. And our Take 5 program, and we actually work with them over a complete year, 11-month program.
The Department of Cultural Affairs and Sport in the Western Cape province of South Africa has also embraced the Take 5 model. The Deputy Director of the MOD program, Hilton Stroud, says they have incorporated it in their existing program, which he elaborates on.
We, as the MOD program, which is a Mass Participation, Opportunity, Access and Development program, which is an after-school program, which operate in 315 schools in the Western Cape for around 70,000 learners who participate in the program. We are implementing the Take 5 program within that space where we give activities such as sports, arts and culture, and life skills. And the synergy between ourselves and Ways for Change, and especially the Take 5 program, is that we see the need to implement our play activities with theory based and research strong activities which deals with protective factors which help kids that come from underserved communities who are affected by violence and all various social ills. So working with Ways for Change has been really a positive initiative. We've learned from each other, and I think they have gotten outcomes that have worked, and we have also definitely embedded the Take 5 program in our daily activities.
United Nations Children's Fund, UNICEF in South Sudan, a country ravaged by war, have also seen the benefits of the Take 5 model. Head of Child Protection at UNICEF South Sudan, Brendan Ross, says they partnered with Waves for Change to implement the program in Somalia. Now it's been running for 4 years in South Sudan.
One of the defining features of war and conflict is that young people tend to, there tends to be violence all around them. There's not enough food, there's not enough safety, and to be safe and to get enough food and to get shelter, you have to join one of these armed forces or armed groups. And so really what this methodology does is it shows boys and young men in particular, but also women, that there is another way. That through forming positive pro-social friendships, by playing games, by simply having fun, and then by learning vocational skills, by learning other livelihoods, you can manage to transition through to adulthood in very, very safe and meaningful ways.
Seymour Hart is a coach within the Take 5 program. He's from the crime-ridden area in the Western Cape province of South Africa. He affirms that the model has worked for the adolescents that he's coaching.
On a daily basis, it's a crime-ridden area. We expect domestic violence. We expect gangsterism. You can expect premature pregnancies where girls are concerned, boys that fall into alcoholism, and then also drugs, gangsterism. So it's like the dominant effect in the era I live in. So like I said, the program is amazing. I mean, it's accepted amazing by us as coaches to take and help the community we live in, because before, when a child reaches adolescence or puberty, the child knows how to handle itself now through the program that we can use with them. And I mean, the opportunity the child can, the opportunity the child might miss by not attending or not having the Take 5 program is gravely negative to their lives.
Meanwhile, the international manager of Take 5, Derek Daniels, says they've been receiving positive feedback about the program. For Channel Africa, I'm Sisi Sekhalo in Johannesburg, South Africa.
Seven o'clock Central African time it is. A very good morning to you. And this is now entering the second hour of Africa Rise and Shine. Thank you for staying with Channel Africa. My name is Asanda, Beda.
And I'm Peter Ndoro. Yeah, we've got a lot to get through in this particular hour. Lots of places that we're traveling across the continent. One big story that played out in South Africa yesterday is President Ramaphosa fired one of his cabinet ministers, the Minister of Higher Education. And we find out why, and I'm also curious about the timing. That's all coming up after the news with Nolutando Buthelezi and sports headlines with Fugile Lingwati.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
Thanks, Peter, and good morning.
Botswana's President Duma Boko has called for unity between South Africa's economic freedom fighters and the African National Congress. This comes after both parties were invited to attend the first Botswana National Front conference, following their historic win in the 2024 elections. Boko says that he hopes that the EFF and the ANC will put aside their differences.
Economic freedom fighters, the African National Congress, all of them must step up in order to step back and reflect on the existential threat that faces their country and the rest of the region, and indeed the continent. And when they do, I hope they rise above and beyond some of these differences.
South Africa has had to import vaccines from neighbouring Botswana to respond to the outbreak of foot and mouth disease. This was revealed by Agriculture Minister John Steenhuisen during the foot and mouth disease Indaba taking place in Pretoria. The Indaba, which closes today, aims to find ways to deal with the animal disease which has affected the red meat industry. The minister says that vaccine availability is among the challenges that they faced during the drive to curb the disease.
The national FMD vaccine bank was depleted, the production cycle misaligned with outbreak realities, and most notably, honest to put, biological products currently lacks the infrastructure to produce FMD vaccines at the scale and speed required to respond to outbreaks. As a result, we were compelled to import vaccines from Botswana to mount a response. Now, this situation can only be viewed as a stopgap measure, but cannot be viewed as sustainable for a country with South Africa's livestock footprint.
Prominent Kenyan activist Boniface Mngwani has been released on bail after being charged with illegal possession of ammunition linked to protests last month, in which at least 19 people were killed. Mwangi pleaded not guilty. He once ran for parliament on an anti-corruption platform and has earned a reputation for speaking out against human rights violations in Kenya as well as abroad. He was expelled from neighbouring Tanzania in May, where he had travelled to observe a hearing in a treason case against an opposition figure. The BBC's Akisa Wandera.
Inside the Nairobi court, his supporters sang the Kenyan national anthem. Mr. Mwangi was arrested over the weekend at his home near the capital, with detectives initially accusing him of facilitating terrorism linked to last month's anti-government protests. During the raid, police said they recovered tear gas canisters and a blank ammunition cartridge. Amnesty International and local human rights groups have described the case as criminalizing dissent.
Global health leaders, policymakers and advocates will gather in Maputo today for the 2025 Innovation and Action for Immunization and Child Survival Forum. The high-level event, hosted by the governments of Mozambique and Sierra Leone, aims to boost access to life-saving vaccines and end preventable child deaths in sub-Saharan Africa. UNICEF's Chief of Child Health and Nutrition, Maike Atz.
And the reason why we're doing this now is that we are only 5 years away from 2030, when we want to reach the Sustainable Development Goals. And there has been a lot of progress in reducing deaths, and particularly preventable deaths in newborns and children under 5 years of age. But still today, and every day, there are 13,000 children who die before they reach their 5th birthday. Now, we know what we need to do to prevent those deaths and also to treat most of the diseases that children die of. But we're not doing enough yet to make sure that every child receives those preventive measures and receives the treatment in time.
At least 27 people were killed after a Bangladesh Air Force training jet crashed into a college and school campus in Dhaka, with 88 people, including children, being treated in hospital. The aircraft crashed soon after it took off on Monday from the air base in Kumitola in the capital on a routine training mission. The military said that the plane experienced a mechanical failure. The government announced a day of mourning with flags at at half-mast and special prayers at all places of worship. The pilot was among those killed in the incident. The military confirmed a committee had been formed to investigate what happened. The crash comes weeks after an Air India plane crashed into a medical college hostel in Ahmedabad in neighboring India, killing 241 of the 242 people on board and 19 on the ground in the world's worst aviation disaster in a decade. For any news stories you would like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa News, I am Nolutando Buthelezi.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
In our sports headline, the president of the South African Rugby says the Junior Boks victory is a tribute to all the hard work done at high school level by educators and coaches. And former Banyana Banyana player Pinky Machekane backs the team ahead of WAFCON clash against Nigeria tonight. I'll be back with these and other stories at the bottom of the hour.
Wake up, Africa. Peter Ndoro and Asanda Beda are here to help you rise and shine. Weekdays, 6 till 9 a.m. Central African Time. Only on Channel Africa.
The World Bank, in partnership with the Mozambican government, have announced plans to boost electricity generation in the region by an additional 15,000 megawatts. Now, the commitment follows revelations by energy producer Kahora Basa during a media tour in Tete province that aging infrastructure and outdated equipment are severely affecting its ability to supply power sufficiently. Channel Africa business reporter Innocent Samosa is in Mozambique with more on this story.
At the heart of Tete province lies the Kahora Basa hydro power plant, a 50-year-old symbol of Mozambique's energy ambitions. But behind the towering turbines and transmission lines is a system under strain. Company officials says decades-old equipment and aging infrastructure are making it harder to meet the rising energy demands of the country and its neighbors. World Bank Group President Ayabanga just concluded his visit to Mozambique. President Daniel Chapo says his visit marks a significant moment in Mozambique's efforts to boost its economic development within the region.
As I very well said to the President of the World Bank and other partners of the World Bank Group who can come and invest in this whole energy grid that we are talking about, producing energy through hydroelectric power stations, solar power stations, gas power stations, and also wind power stations.
Mozambique's largest power producer, Kahora Basa, says it urgently needs investment to address major challenges facing the region's energy sector. President Ayabanga underscored Mozambique's energy potential.
He has a few priorities which we share. One of those is energy, and he is very keen to use the assets of Mozambique, which is hydroelectric, natural gas, solar, sun, wind. You've got everything in this country to create the right kind of capability for energy and transmission. And frankly, in this part of Africa, nobody has the capacity or capability to do what can be done with the assets of this country. So I think this is a real opportunity to not only see and understand what has been done 50 years ago, which now can be the basis of the next set of investments. We are discussing with the government of Mozambique the idea of investing in another 1,500 megawatts downstream from here, a cascade project. And then in the meantime, we're also doing some investing in solar capacity, 400 megawatts. And then he has some master plans, which I think are even more interesting in terms of adding more capacity in this plant and renovating this plant and then adding further downstream. So if you look at a 10-year picture of this president's thinking, which I share, it is to make Mozambique an energy powerhouse.
Meanwhile, Carlos Yam, CEO of Pandakua, says an estimated $1.4 billion would go a long way in helping the company reach new heights and expand its impact in the energy sector.
The entirety of this project, if we include the financial and labor aspect, will be well above $1.4 billion. It is very important for us to analyze not only the documentation, but ideological issues and also infrastructural issues.
With regional energy needs growing and infrastructure aging fast, Cahora Bassa's call for investment could be a game changer, not just for Mozambique, but for the entire region. For Channel Africa News, I'm Innocent Samosa in Songo, Mozambique.
Right, let's come to South Africa now, where the country's president, Cyril Ramaphosa, has fired his higher education minister, Nobuhle Nkabane, amid growing controversy surrounding the appointment of Sector Education and Training Authority, SETA board members. Her dismissal comes just days before she was scheduled to appear before Parliament, raising questions about accountability and governance in higher education sector. Now, taking over the ministry is Buti Manamela, who until now has been serving as the deputy minister in the same ministry. The shake-up has sparked debate over political patronage, internal party dynamics, and the president's leadership approach in an election season. Well, to help us unpack the significance of this move and what it may signal politically, we're now joined by political analyst and academic Dr. Levi Ndoro. It's been a while, but good to talk to you again, Dr. Ndoro.
Good to talk to you, Peter, and good morning to you and the listeners at home.
I suppose, given some of the dynamics, this move by President Ramaphosa was not expected.
Peter, it was expected. The writing was on the wall. Most of us, and indeed many people, would say that President Ramaphosa, he would want to widely consult. He would allow other institutions or sectors to do their work so that when he takes a decision, it will be a well-informed decision. You will recall that the minister was supposed to travel some days back, and she was instructed to cancel an international trip, and that raised a lot of suspicions as to whether what could be informing the decision by the president to inform the minister not to travel. But I think what the president would have done is that he could have consulted his party, because they had a meeting over the weekend as the party, and they could have looked at what could have happened in Parliament, whether the minister has a case to answer, and that could have prompted this decision that the president has taken.
Some are saying the timing is interesting because the minister was supposed to face tough questions in Parliament. Do you think that this was strategic so that the public don't get a chance to see this grilling and possibly embarrass the ANC?
What I suspect is that indeed the timing should have informed this decision, and to say she has to get out of office before she could go and meet Parliament today. It could have been informed by some sort of consultations that could have taken place, and they could have come to an agreement or conclusion that the minister could not be able to escape the parliamentary processes. MPs appears to be well armed to face the expelled minister, and she couldn't have anywhere to run to. But that also takes us to another area in terms of governance, that I think some of the ministers always venture into a wrong space, venture into administration and want to do the details, because with the manner in which the minister was responding previously, she appears to have taken over the responsibility of the administrators, which is an area where ministers are supposed to venture into. And I think most of the ministers in the past have been in hot water because they ventured mostly into the space where they're not supposed to be participating.
Some people might say this is all smoke and mirrors because the president fired the Democratic Alliance's deputy president for some might describe a far less infraction. And then, of course, the Senzo Mchunu case continues, and he continues, whilst albeit on special leave. He hasn't been fired. So it makes it really difficult for him not to take action, I'm guessing.
What is very important is to look at each case based on its merits. The deputy minister of the Democratic Alliance defied the president. He made an application to travel, and before such is approved, he decided to travel. That is in defiance of the state president. Minister Mchunu has allegations, and very serious allegations, and these allegations have not yet been tested. Someone says he has done wrong, and he says I've done nothing. But worse is that the allegations that are made ventures into all the three arms of government. It involves the executive, it involves those that are in parliament, it also involves the judiciary. And what do you do in this situation? You need to conduct thorough investigation because everyone appears to be involved in this case. And if you only deal with one aspect, you might not be able to deal with the entire road. So I think the president could have decided to go for a commission of inquiry so that he or the commission is able to deal with the entire road. Now, with the Minister of Education, the minister appears to have lied to Parliament. The minister appears to have provided wrong information, which also implicated her. But worse is simple things that at times we don't consider. The body language, the posture of the minister whilst she was called to account says a lot about public representatives. And I think some could have learned from the minister's conduct. And based on that, it could have been, influenced the president to take such decisions. So we're still going to have many of these kind of activities, and the president has to be very, very careful when taking a decision, because whatever decision that the president has to take would have a trail, and precedence matters when you're running government.
So is this issue just about her misleading Parliament, or are there bigger issues at play at the Ministry of Higher Education? And if there are, then is Buti Manamela the person to replace her, because he'd been there all along?
You wouldn't know if there are other issues that the minister could have done, which has created a situation where the president has to opt for a harsh punishment. But there are many factors at play. You have got other parties that are worried that there are certain ministers that are not accounting. You have got other parties that are worried that the minister has lied to Parliament. You also have a perception that seems to suggest that there is too much interference by the minister in the running of the department, and issues that also talks to inefficiency on the running of the Department of Higher Education. But when you look at Buti Manamela, he has been there for quite some time. He has been given a number of responsibilities by the different ministers that have run this department. He understands higher education very, very well. He has been involved in the student movement. He has been involved in higher education, and he would be the right person to know and understand what are the main challenges that are faced in higher education. Buti Manamela has been very much vocal on issues that relates to NEFSAS. And I think now that he's given these responsibilities, he could be able to ensure that all the challenges relating to NEFSAS are actually fixed. But governance, in my view, of different institutions of higher learning should be his priority. Maybe he will be able to make a much bigger difference.
And that's where we're going to have to leave it. Dr. Ndoro, always a pleasure talking to you. Thanks so much for joining us.
You're always welcome. Thank you so much.
Thank you. That's Dr. Ndoro, political analyst and academic, speaking to us on President Ramaphosa firing his higher education minister in a cabinet reshuffle.
Stella Longwe, Pamalonje.
Palitusokoma pano pamalonje kumvera nyimbo za mu Africa kusangalala kupeza moyo akuti kumva moyo kuti kuyenda bwino pano pamalonje ndiyetu apa tili ndikatswiri oyimba ameneyu ndikatswiri wa dziko la Malawi amene akukhala mdziko la South Africa ndipo amayimba amene akuti ndi Big Nick Malawi. Yatusati kuti kodi moyo wanu woyimba ukuyenda bwanji mu Johannesburg?
Moyo woyimba ukuyenda bwino kwambiri chiliyonse chikutheka ndithu bwino.
Ayi aziwoneka yonse chikutheka mofa magrasi anu apa mwaka akuti kumenya yonse aziwoneka zoti azikutheka ndithu mu Johannesburg.
Malonje panthawi ya 6 koloko kufikira 7 koloko madzulo lowiruka ndi Stella Longwe. A fresh morning, a fresh perspective. Stay tuned to Rise and Shine on Channel Africa.
Corruption Watch has strongly condemned recent threats and attacks on human rights organizations and defenders, including Abahlali Ndoro, the Socio-Economic Rights Institute, or SERI, and the South African Human Rights Commission, following anti-immigrant protests by Operation Dudula. To talk us through this is Janine Erasmus from Corruption Watch. Janine, thank you for joining us this morning. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. Good morning, and good morning to the viewers.
Thank you for making time. So what prompted Corruption Watch to launch or speak out against these attacks on Abahlali, the SERI and the SAHRC?
Well, the most fundamental fact is that the anti-immigration and anti-immigrant actions are illegal and unconstitutional. We have laws that are laid down very firmly in this country that protect people. We've got the Bill of Rights, which lays down rights such as freedom of association. We've got freedom to life. We've got the freedom to human dignity, and we've got the freedom from discrimination. And there are a lot of grounds given in the section against freedom from discrimination, which is also known as equality, that the people may not use when they discriminate against people, and this is what Operation Dudula is doing. They are acting anti-constitutionally, and they are also inciting violence against immigrants, which is also unconstitutional and expressly prohibited in the Bill of Rights.
Operation Dudula is claiming that it's acting in the interests of South Africans. How do they make that make sense? And what is your response to that argument, particularly when it comes to access to public health care?
This is a very disingenuous argument on the part of Operation Dudula, because there's no statistical evidence that shows that the breakdown in health services and the breakdown in basic services is related in any way to the presence of immigrants in our country. Rather, the factors reside with the government. I mean, we know that there's corruption, we know that there's failure to maintain infrastructure, and therefore the infrastructure is collapsing. We know that there's mismanagement, we know that there is a failure of good governance. And these are the real factors behind, for instance, the failure of the public health system to be able to cope with with the volumes of people that it needs to. These are the real reasons, but Operation Dudula opportunistically is taking the chance to to carry out their actions against immigrants, against foreign nationals, on the spurious reason, which, as I said, has got no statistical proof, that they are taking away jobs from South Africa. They're overburdening the public health system. This is not true.
So what kind of threats and attacks have there been on these human rights organizations operating in the country of South Africa? Abahlali Ndoro, the Socio-Economic Rights Institute and the South African Human Rights Commission.
Abahlali Ndoro did. They released a statement a couple of days ago detailing some of the threats that they have received. And, these are threats that are made openly on social media, such as "you will be necklaced one by one." I believe that, that those were the very words. I don't have the statement open in front of me now, but that is the nature of the threats that they are receiving. And it's absolutely, it just cannot happen. It must not be allowed to happen. That people make such threats against their own countrymen just merely for the purpose of because they're standing up for human rights.
Abahlali has long faced violence and intimidation. It's not the first time that they're going through this. So now that it's escalating, what is the plan from here on out? And is there any kind of responsibility that can be placed on even some of the social media platforms in terms of due diligence in protecting its users?
You see, unfortunately, social media is a bit of a free-for-all at the moment. This is because the owners of the social media platforms are not strict enough in managing the content that is on there. There's a lot of hate speech that's shared. There's a lot of fake news that is shared, and these managers of the platforms don't take enough care, and they don't do their own due diligence, in weeding them out. So what can be done at the moment? I know there's a court case. We've got Kopanang, Africa Against Xenophobia, which is they've brought a case against Operation Dudula, which is in the High Court at the moment, and they are being represented by SERI, by the Socio-Economic Rights Institute, which is one of the reasons why this organization has been targeted. So we'll have to see what happens in terms of that court case, the urgency with which it's treated in the courts, and what the judgment is, and, from that judgment will flow the actions that social justice organizations may decide to take against Dudula. The judgment will guide us as to how to proceed.
What role can or should law enforcement and government institutions play in protecting human rights defenders from threats like this?
Well, they must do their job. They must act constitutionally. The Constitution, the Bill of Rights expressly prohibits this kind of action, and law enforcement must enforce that. Unfortunately, we hear reports that the police actually act hand in hand with Dudula on some occasions, or at least if they don't act hand in hand, they stand by and they don't intervene. So, so the police and law enforcement have to step up. They have to do their job, and they have to apply the principles of the Constitution against everybody equally, and that includes those who are acting unconstitutionally.
Finally, what message does Corruption Watch want to send to ordinary South Africans and ordinary foreign nationals within the country, especially those who may feel anger and frustration about service delivery failures, but also the irresponsibility of making threats like this?
We would like people to know that it is in their hands to change the situation. Not immediately, not overnight, but the fact is that it's our government partly that has brought this situation to fruition, and people have to be, especially when it comes to, for instance, elections. We've got local government elections coming up next year. People must think very long and hard about who they want to vote into power. Because the current government, I'm speaking before the government of national unity, has failed them. That's the only word that we can use. So people must obviously, without putting themselves in danger. We don't want people to go and put themselves in harm's way, but they must do what they can within their powers to stand up against xenophobia, because it really is. That is a violation of human rights, and they must think about when it comes to decisions that affect them, political decisions. They must think about who they want to take those decisions forward.
Janine, thank you so much again for joining us at Channel Africa.
Thank you.
I appreciate your time. Janine Erasmus is from Corruption Watch, talking to us about concerns and how they've condemned recent threats and attacks on human rights organizations and defenders operating within the country of South Africa. 7:30 Central African time it is. Let's say good morning for our news headlines. Here's Nolutando Butelezi.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective.
The Forum for South Africa has welcomed the appointment of Buti Manamela as the new Minister of Higher Education and Training, saying that they believe that Manamela understands the complexity of the department. South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa, meanwhile, has suspended South Gauteng Director of Public Prosecutions Advocate Andrew Chauke with immediate effect, pending an inquiry into his fitness to hold office. And as Taiwan gears up for a recall vote that could reshape its parliament, opposition lawmakers are being challenged at the ballot box and getting to unusual supporters, Chinese officials, and state media outlets. I'll have the details at the top of the hour.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective.
Right, let's get an African perspective on the sport. And at the desk this morning is Fikile Lingwati. And I guess women's football sharply in focus, Fikile.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Yes, indeed, Peter. We begin, but then with rugby news also, where the president of the South African Rugby Union, Mark Alexander, says the Junior Boks World Cup triumph is a remarkable feat. The Junior Springboks made history at the weekend, winning the World Rugby Under-20 Championship for the second time and the first time in 13 years. They beat 6 times champions New Zealand in the final. The Springboks men now hold the senior and the under-20 titles, while they are also world champions in the sevens format. Alexander says they had to put together a formidable technical team.
I think it's very important for South African rugby for our teams winning. It shows that we're working together. Our programs are working. We were in a very, very dark place in 2016. That was just after that 2013 win, and we had to build. And we thank God for the school system we have. We got a huge player base in our school system.
On to football news, former Banyana midfielder Pinky Machekane says the defending champions need to play to their own strength when they face Nigeria in the WAFCON semi-final tonight. Banyana's title defense hopes were kept alive after their hard-fought 4-1 win in a penalty shootout against Senegal in the quarterfinals on Saturday. Machekane admits that it won't be easy to disrupt the Super Falcons' Mission X, but believes Coach Derzi Ellis' charges have the right capacity to retain the championship.
10 times WAFCON champions, and obviously they're looking to win their 10th a title here. But I don't think South African Banyana will just sit back there and just let the Nigerians take this one. We are the defending champions, and I think over the years we've shown how capable we are as a nation, as a team. We've been in an encounter with Nigeria a few times, and the last time we've beaten them. So it means this is possible for us.
Now on to cricket news. Rwanda women's national cricket team kicked off their campaign at the 2025 ICC Women's T20 World Cup Africa Qualifier Division 2 with a dominant 10-wicket victory over Lesotho at Botswana Cricket Association Oval. In what turned out to be a one-sided affair, Lesotho won the toss and chose to bat first, but struggled against Rwanda's sharp bowling attack. They were bowled out for just 23 runs in 10.1 overs, with none of their batters reaching double figures. And we end with tennis news. Well, number 2, Carlos Alcaraz, a 5-time Grand Slam singles champion, has withdrawn from next week's ATP Canadian Open in Toronto to recover from Wimbledon. The 22-year-old Spaniard lost to top-ranked Jannik Sinner in the Wimbledon final earlier this month in a bid for his 3rd consecutive crown in the Grass Court Classic. Alcaraz had his best Canada run in 2023, falling to American Tommy Paul in the quarterfinals. Tournament director Carl Hale says although he has been on the scene for a while, he's still at the beginning of his career and there will be plenty of opportunities for Canadians to see him again in the future. American Sebastian Korda, the world number 33, struggling with a leg injury, and Poland's 38th ranked Hubert Hurkacz, fighting a knee injury, have also withdrawn. For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, please do send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +2711 714 4459. This is Channel Africa Sport with me, Figile Lungwati.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Parlez-vous couramment le français? Êtes-vous passionné par la radio? Et êtes-vous qualifié pour travailler en Afrique du Sud? Envoyez-nous votre CV et vos 3 minutes démo en MP3 à @channelafrica.co.za pour avoir une chance de rejoindre la famille Channel Africa. Si vous n'avez pas de réponse après 14 jours, cela signifie que vous n'avez pas été retenu. Channel Africa, la perspective africaine.
Your morning companion with the stories that matter. This is Rise and Shine on Channel Africa.
Let's find out what's happening in the world of business. Here's Nosipho Zuma with the news there.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Asanda. Good morning. In your business news this hour, FlySafair says it had to cancel 26 flights, which accounted to 13% of its operations amid the wage strike by pilots, which started yesterday. FlySafair pilots have rejected the airline's 5.7% wage increase offer, sticking to their demand of a 10.5% hike. FlySafair insisted that it has been negotiating in good faith under the process led by the CCMA. Chief Marketing Officer at FlySafair, Kirby Garden.
The reality is that's a 10% increase on basic pay. Pilots' remuneration is quite complex. It's nuanced. There are flight pay things, there are allowances that are considered, there are bonuses, and actually when one looks at the full cost to company increase that they are demanding, it's 20.1%. Now these are individuals who are well paid, they are competitively paid compared to other airlines. They're in the top 1% of earners. A captain will earn between 1.8 and 2.3 million rand a year.
South Africa's Standing Committee on Public Accounts says the dissolution of the board of the Road Accident Fund will not distract its work of conducting an inquiry into the affairs of the entity. Transport Minister Barbara Creecy recently dissolved the board of RAF, citing persistent governance and operational challenges that have beset the entity and significantly undermined its ability to discharge its statutory mandate. SCOPA has already adopted the terms of reference of the inquiry into allegations of maladministration and financial impropriety, among other findings or other things at RAF. Chairperson of SCOPA, Songezo Zibi, says the dissolution of the board will not affect the inquiry.
The Standing Committee on Public Accounts has noted the dissolution of the board of the Road Accident Fund by the Minister of Transport. Our position is that the inquiry will nonetheless continue because we are not investigating individuals. We are investigating the crisis of financial management and mismanagement of funds at the Road Accident Fund. And that work needs to continue. And to the extent that there are former and current board members or staff who need to appear before the committee, they will either be invited or subpoenaed to appear.
Australia-based AVZ Minerals, which holds a majority stake in the contested Manono lithium project in the Democratic Republic of Congo, says a new deal between Kinshasa and US-backed Cobalt Metals to develop part of the project breaches an existing international arbitration order. The DRC government recently said that it had signed an agreement with Cobalt to jointly develop the southern section of the Manono lithium and tin deposit, one of the world's largest untapped sources of the battery metal. Bundle Headbush reports.
The agreement signed by the DRC government and Cobalt commits the Congolese government to support Cobalt's plans to acquire and develop the Rochadura deposit at Manono. This effectively positions a California-based firm as Kinshasa's preferred partner to unlock the stalled project. Meanwhile, AVZ Minerals is currently locked in arbitration with the DRC at the International Center for Settlement of Investment Disputes over the government's failure to grant them a mining permit. For Channel Africa Business, I am Buntle Hedbush.
Morocco Central Bank Governor Abdelatif Jouari says the bank is exploring the use of its digital currency for peer-to-peer and cross-border payments. The central bank digital currency is controlled by the central bank, in contrast to cryptocurrencies that are usually decentralized. Elizabeth Mapari has more.
The Morocco Central Bank says it's been working with the IMF and the World Bank to assess the payment system impacts of its central bank digital currency. They are also exploring the use of digital currency for cross-border transfers. Cryptocurrencies have been banned in Morocco since 2017, but the public continues to use them underground, circumventing restrictions. The bank says a draft law on crypto assets is currently under review by the country's finance ministry.
And finally, oil prices have declined as concerns the brewing trade war between major crude consumers. The U.S. and the European Union will curb fuel demand growth by lowering economic activity, weighed on investor sentiment. Brent crude futures fell 52 cents to $68.69 a barrel. U.S. West Texas Intermediate crude was at $66.69 a barrel, down 51 cents. Both benchmarks settled slightly lower on Monday. Your financial indicators: $1 in Nigeria is trading at 1,530 naira, and Botswana it's 13 pula 30. Kenya, the dollar is trading at 128 shillings 71, and in Zambia it's 23 kwacha 08. The BRICS countries: $1 in Brazil is trading at 579. Russia is at 78 rubles 44. India is 86 rupees 14. China it's 17. In South Africa, $1 is trading at 17 rand 68. $1 is trading at 74 pence to the British pound and 85 to the euro. Looking at commodities, gold is trading at $3,390 and platinum at $1,447 per ounce. The price of Brent crude oil is at $68.64 a barrel. Now, for any business news stories you would like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa Business, I'm Nusi Posuma.
Business News on Channel Africa. The African Perspective. Download the SABC app and take Channel Africa with you everywhere you go.
SABC, South African Broadcasting Corporation, SABC Sport, brings you Chasing the Sun. And that's a powerful 5-part documentary series about South Africa's national rugby team, the Springboks, telling the rousing tale of their path to redemption and ultimate World Cup glory in 2019. Started on the 13th of July at 7:30 p.m. Central African Time on SABC2. Tune in every Sunday for the highs, the heartaches, and the heroics that made rugby history. And you can stream each chapter on SABC Plus anytime, anywhere, and no subscription is required. Don't miss Chasing the Sun this Sunday at 7:30 p.m. on SABC2. And make sure that you are there when history is here.
Mornings made better with Peter and Asanda on Rise and Shine. Weekdays, 6 till 9 Central African Time on Channel Africa.
Now, South Africa's embattled state-owned logistics company Transnet has suffered another setback. The global ratings agency S&P Standards & Poor's has downgraded the company's credit rating from BB- to B+, from BB to B+. a clear sign that Transnet is now seen as increasingly vulnerable and potentially unable to meet its debt obligations. The downgrade highlights Transnet's deepening reliance on government to support to stay afloat amid mounting criticism over years of mismanagement and a lack of meaningful reform. Dimakaso Lishoro has more for us.
With bailouts including credit guarantee facilities of above $5 billion over the last 5 years, Transnet seems to be sinking even further. The latest assessment from S&P Global Ratings found the entity is wholly dependent on state support to be able to service its debt because of its sizable negative cash flow. It is burning through $761 million annually, and it has high fixed costs as well as major capital expenditure requirements, which it cannot sustain without a bailout. Busisiwe Mavuso, head of business leadership South Africa, says the downgrade from BB- to B positive is not only a reflection of Transnet's financial distress, but also a damning indictment of years of failed leadership, union militancy, and a government that continues to bail out state-owned enterprises without demanding fundamental reforms.
The decision by Standard & Poor to downgrade Transnet credit rating was very disappointing for us as the business community, precisely because there is a lot of time, energy, effort, and work that has been put in to try and ensure that the utility actually turns the corner. As much as there's recently been slow progress in terms of implementing some of the deliverables that are necessary to improve the operational performance of Transnet, we were hoping that we wouldn't see the credit rating agency downgrading Transnet. It really is a step back in terms of where the utility finds itself. This makes it difficult for them to raise funding for the much needed work that they need to do. It makes it difficult for them to eventually get themselves out of this financial rut that they find themselves in. But when you look at why they were downgraded, it actually makes sense, because then S&P is actually saying that we are worried that Transnet continues to burn cash without the prospect of turning around its operational performance. They are saying we are worried that Transnet might not be in a position to actually reach its targeted 250 million tons by 2030 as they had actually articulated and as they had actually set out.
Despite this, the company has offered its workforce a higher than inflation wage increase, leaving analysts baffled given its weakened financial position.
Transnet agreed to get into an arrangement with the unions where their employees are going to be getting 6% increases for the next 3 years. And it therefore doesn't make sense to say, if you are an entity that finds itself in this position, on what basis do you agree on a 6% increase when inflation is currently 2.8? On what basis do you agree that you are not going to be retrenching any workers for the next 3 years when you don't know how the current cycle and lack of operational performance is actually going to affect your business, as it were? I think we're just going to have to intensify our efforts in terms of ensuring that the logistics crisis that we have in this country is actually improved. We are already doing a lot of work as business in terms of ensuring that through the National Logistics Crisis Committee, there is some progress. We are obviously trying to accelerate, the private sector participation that is currently underway.
In his weekly newsletter, President Cyril Ramaphosa says 98 requests by private train operators had been received thus far, but there has been no formal allocation. This is part of government's plan to include the private sector in Transnet's operation to help ease the burden on the state and introduce reforms. Ramaphosa says a revised network statement will be published soon and capacity allocated in response to the requests. For Channel Africa News, I'm Dimakazo Leshoro in Johannesburg.
Just before 10 minutes to the top of the hour, Central African time, close to 200 South Africans are currently stranded in Thailand after falling for a human trafficking scheme. They were lured by the promise of well-paying jobs advertised through social media and word of mouth. This criminal operation is allegedly orchestrated by a Chinese mafia network. For more on this, we joined by founder and chief executive of Brave to Love SA, Emma van der Walt. joining us on the line. Emma, thank you for joining us at Channel Africa. How are you?
Thank you. Good morning. Yes, thank you for giving voice to this topic. It's really important in getting our South Africans safe back.
Absolutely. Can you? We start by getting a background to Brave to Love SA. What do you guys do?
So we're a counter-human trafficking organization. We specialize only on human trafficking, and that obviously forms part of organized crime, identifying victims, working closely with law enforcement and government in the extraction and rescue of victims, and then also the aftercare process of survivors then of human trafficking, different forms of human trafficking. But yes, that's how we're obviously involved with the victims from Myanmar.
So what is known about this alleged Chinese mafia network? Its MO, modus operandi, and if there are previous operations it's orchestrated?
This is a massive global challenge. We have seen these scamming compounds just after COVID and even before that pop up in places, with specifically Myanmar, where they have situated themselves very comfortably in alliance with the government of Myanmar. We know that the militia is operating with them. We also know of other compounds worldwide from different countries. We know there used to be a compound in Namibia, but that specific compound actually have moved. And they are currently still recruiting South Africans to go to work into these scamming compounds. Very well organized. I mean, these Chinese bosses, mafia groups are so organized. There's HR departments, there's, the recruitment process, there's complaint departments. But it's definitely, we're looking at trafficking into criminality, where there's a victim being trafficked and forced to do online scamming.
So in this latest story, what led to these unsuspecting victims being lured to Thailand, and what sort of jobs were being advertised?
So it's quite interesting. The story of all the victims we've interviewed and been part of the journey. And like I said, I have been involved even 4 years back already with some of these compounds where they were recruiting from other countries, but not yet South Africa. And then we were trying to keep our eye on it to see when will they target and recruit South Africans. So firstly, we're looking at the vulnerabilities of young South Africans, unemployment, where they want to find jobs. The jobs are mostly advertised on Facebook, on your social media platforms, or sometimes through a friend that is already there or has a family member there. So the recruitment starts there. Mm-hmm. Recruitment's very fast. Advertised for work opportunities in online marketing to sell products to America or to the UK, targeting those countries. So they're looking for people that can at least have IT experience, computer literature, and then also English speaking. And then in 3 days, sometimes when your passport's ready, in 3 days, they book your flight, they pay for all the cost, getting you to Thailand, Bangkok, and there they pick you up, and the whole trafficking starts from there, where they actually transport you, then smuggle you over the border of Myanmar, over the river, and then from there on, the trafficking just starts, and they are trafficked into scamming compounds.
What are the profiles of these victims, and when they arrived in Thailand, what actually happened to them?
So the profile is the age group between 18 and 35, around there, most looking for employment overseas in Thailand. Different people, female, male, as long as they can speak English. The South Africans specifically are targeted, but we're looking at victims from all over. Many victims from Zimbabwe, Kenya, all African, and then also victims from Asia, China, all over the world. Literally, most countries are affected by this. And the scary thing is once they cross the border, it's quite a scary experience for them to be smuggled over the border with armed militia people, taking them over with guns, and then once they reach the compound is extremely secure. Once you enter, you cannot exit. There's security, there's cameras watching them 24 hours. They are taken to a room where there's bunker beds, and then the training start. And the training is actually where they give them a script to read. These criminals, they are taught into training. They create a virtual character, usually a blonde female, that will target males. They've got a specific character where the female must know of finances, and then they target on social media platforms people that are vulnerable and are looking to invest into cryptocurrency. And it's quite a process where they lure these victims, because there's two victims. There's a victim that are scamming the person, and there's a victim that is being scammed out of their money. And once they get these people to invest into cryptocurrency or online sales, and then they scam them out of all their money.
Goodness, this goes beyond catfishing. We thought that was worse, when people are pretending to be what they're not. Now people are being trafficked into luring other individuals who now lose out on their money and their investments. It's pretty scary, Emma, because as much as you can say we look out for social media platforms and the advertising there, but if they also use word of mouth, if there's somebody that is a physical human being right there saying, come over, that would be difficult to pick up. So why is it easy for people to fall for such scams, and what should we be wary of?
So this is very important. I mean, we've known even in the Soweto area where there was a specific recruiter recruiting out of the church there, recruiting vulnerable people and saying, listen, I've got a job for you overseas. So it's very important. The first thing, if you go to Thailand, there's a massive caution at the moment. So for young people to go to Thailand for work opportunities, please be aware. Contact your embassy if you are traveling overseas. These criminal groups are targeting South Africa because they know that we can go over quickly on a travel visa. A travel visa without needing a work visa. So these criminals are telling South Africans that when you get there, we will sort out the work visa. So Thailand can actually pick up on the passports if they come over on a work visa, they can actually pick it up and the person can be safeguarded. So, and then the second thing is people need to phone the human traffic hotline to verify overseas job. If you've got a caution to say that this job might not look real or it might be a scam, you can phone the Human Traffic Hotline, South African hotline, and they verify the job for you to make sure it's not a scam or that you're not going to be trafficked in an overseas country where it's difficult to get you back into South Africa.
Talk to us about how you're working with the Department of International Relations and Cooperation, the Hawks, the Department of Social Development, and the Department of Home Affairs and Immigration Services to bring them back home, these trafficked individuals.
Yes, correct. So I think when the first victim started reaching out to us, actually one of the family members started reaching out because they didn't know what to do, because China actually, there was a celebrity from China that was also kidnapped and taken to these compounds, and that's when it started bringing quite a lot of attention to it. And that's why Myanmar and Thailand then decided to go into these compounds to see which one of these South Africans, because we need to understand some of these South Africans might be willingly there to scam people. They might be criminal. So it's a very tricky process to see who's the victims and who are actually there to scam people out of their money, who is the aspect of criminal. But so the embassy has definitely been working quite hard from Thailand's side to be able to identify and help victims get back. We've been involved with Interpol. Interpol is these large investigations from their side working on a global level on these cases. There are other countries also involved. And the first 23 victims, South Africa has really assisted them to be able to get them back and repatriate them back to South Africa, which we're very grateful for. There is quite a large need still to be able to identify this victim, because the communication to the victims on the inside of the compound is extremely monitored by these Chinese bosses. So it's very difficult to get access to these victims. But there's definitely, the Department of Social Development has done extremely well in really to see what is the aftercare process. But I do believe as South Africans, we can do more in assisting the youth of South Africa with employment. I mean, South Africa is the highest of youth unemployment in the world. And this is why our country is at risk. So we need to see how do we empower our youth to be able to find jobs within South Africa or safe recruitment overseas. But yes, so DIRCO is definitely, we have much more to do. And I think South Africa needs to work closely with Interpol in getting and identifying our victims that are currently still stuck in Myanmar. And they are speaking of these Chinese bosses actually taking our victims to Cambodia, which is even worse. And we know of South African victims that are in Cambodia and survivors that have been rescued from Cambodia as well. So it's not just Myanmar. There are other compounds that we need to keep our eye on.
Absolutely. It will need a SADC region strategy as well. As you mentioned, Zimbabwe is also affected, and other countries, East Africa, Kenya there. But let's leave it there for now, Emma. Thank you so much for educating us. So that hotline for human trafficking, we can just Google for those who are outside of the country. And then in the country, what is the number?
So in the country, it's 0800 222 777. Very easy. 0800 222 777 to report any form of human trafficking.
All right, we'll leave it there for now, that chat. Thanks again for your time. We appreciate it there. Emma van der Walt, founder and executive of Brave to Love SA, a civil rights group dealing with human trafficking. Right, we enter the third and final hour of Africa Rise and Shine. Good morning. If you've just joined us, if you've stayed with us on Channel Africa, we appreciate that. And thanks for doing just that. In this hour, we look at the United Nations having thrown its full support behind South Africa's G20 presidency, as well as the opening of the G20 platform to advocate for an inclusive global economic order, and that's in collaboration with AU institutions. Those stories and more coming up. My name is Asanda, Beda.
And I'm Peter Ndoro. Thanks for joining us for this third and final hour. And in a short while, I'm going to be talking to an analyst unpacking Gabon for us, a country that recently joined the Commonwealth and also ended, of course, decades of Bongo rule. So what's the state of play now? What does it mean for Gabon to be a part of the Commonwealth, apart from now calling their ambassadors high commissioners? That's all coming up after the news with Nolutando Buthelezi and news headlines with Fikile Lingwat.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
Thanks, Peter, and good morning. The Forum for South Africa has lauded the appointment of Buti Manamela as the country's new Minister of Higher Education and Training. The Forum says that it is confident that Manamela will understand the complexity of the department, unlike the former Minister Dr. Nkabane. National leader of Forum for South Africa, Tebogo Moshilumbane, has labelled Nkabane as an arrogant minister who failed to make significant progress.
Dr. Nkabane was a very arrogant minister simply because she did not understand the sophisticated department. As a result, she was more defensive than being proactive, and her attitude did not help the department to progress.
South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa has suspended South Gauteng Director of Public Prosecutions Advocate Andrew Chauke with immediate effect, pending an inquiry into his fitness to hold office. Chauke failed to provide reasons why he should not be suspended. Ramaphosa informed Chauke of his decision in writing, citing that Chauke's continued tenure as Director of Public Prosecutions while facing serious accusations would negatively affect the reputation of the National Prosecuting Authority as a whole. Spokesperson to Cyril Ramaphosa, Vincent Magwenya.
Having asked Advocate Chauke to provide reasons why he should not be suspended, President Ramaphosa has decided suspension is the correct course of action pending an inquiry. President Ramaphosa informed Advocate Chauke of his decision in writing and indicated that the President and the public will benefit from an independent assessment of issues that require elucidation and on which there are disputes of fact.
Prominent Kenyan activist Boniface Mwangi has been released on bail after being charged with illegal possession of ammunition linked to protests last month in which at least 19 people were killed. Mwangi pleaded not guilty. He once ran for parliament on an anti-corruption platform and has earned a reputation for speaking out against human rights violations in Kenya as well as abroad. He was expelled from neighboring Tanzania in May, where he had travelled to observe a hearing in a treason case against an opposition figure. The BBC's Akisa Wandera.
Inside the Nairobi court, his supporters sang the Kenyan national anthem. Mr. Mwangi was arrested over the weekend at his home near the capital, with detectives initially accusing him of facilitating terrorism linked to last month's anti-government protests. During the raid, police said they recovered tear gas canisters and a blank ammunition cartridge. Amnesty International and local human rights groups have described the case as criminalizing dissent.
Judge Emma Schumann is expected to deliver her judgment in the application by the state for clarification on the acquittal of Nigerian televangelist Timothy Omodoso and his co-accused Lusanda Sulani and Zukiswa Sito today. This after the National Prosecuting Authority sent a request for clarification of factual findings in Schumann's judgment after she found Omodoso and her co-accused not guilty on charges of racketeering, human trafficking, and rape in April. She ruled that the state failed to prove the case beyond reasonable doubt, claiming that there was not enough evidence provided and poor cross-examination by the state. And as Taiwan gears up for a recall vote that could reshape its parliament, opposition lawmakers being challenged at the ballot box are getting two unusual supporters. Chinese officials and state media outlets rallying to their cause. While President Lai Ching-te won the election last year, his Democratic Progressive Party lost its legislative majority. The opposition has flexed its muscles since then to pass laws the government has opposed and impose budget cuts, complicating efforts to boost defense spending in particular. The political drama has been happening against a backdrop of China ramping up its own military diplomatic pressure campaign against Taiwan to assert territorial claims. Lai and his government resolutely rejected. Lai has offered talks with Beijing many times but rebuffed. For any news stories that you would like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa News, I am Nolutando Butelezi.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
In our sports headline, Proteas wants to be more ruthless against New Zealand today. And the Confederation of African Football expects a record attendance at next month's African Nations Championship in Kenya, Uganda and Tanzania. I'll be back with these and other stories at the bottom of the hour.
Wake up, Africa. Peter Ndoro and Asanda Beda are here to help you rise and shine. Weekdays, 6 till 9 a.m. Central African Time. Only on Channel Africa.
The United Nations, or UN, has thrown its full support behind South Africa's G20 presidency, emphasizing the urgent need for business unusual to accelerate progress toward the Sustainable Development Goals. On the margins of the Startup 20 or SU20, Small and Micro Medium Enterprise or SMME conference underway in the city of Johannesburg, Channel Africa's Michael Mbewe spoke to UN's South Africa Country Coordinator Nelson Mafu, who says entrepreneurship, innovation and inclusive economic growth must be central to global efforts, particularly as the world falls behind on critical development targets.
For the UN, startups, entrepreneurship, innovation are at the heart of efforts to accelerate progress towards sustainable development. The Secretary General himself has said we are not on track and with regards to the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals. And so we need to look at doing business unusual. And that means working with small, medium-sized enterprises to scale up efforts at job creation, wealth creation, sharing prosperity, and this conference gives an opportunity to reflect and provide inputs into the G20 process itself and also the reflections at the global level around all of these matters.
How does the UN resonate with South Africa's G20 theme of solidarity, sustainability, and equality?
Well, it is important that sustainability is at the heart of all developmental efforts. to be able to achieve this, we need solidarity. And we need to also ensure no one is left behind, and that's where inclusion comes in. So the UN's objectives align very well with South Africa's G20 theme and the work under its presidency, including what is coming from the engagement groups and the different tracks. And the Secretary General of the UN and the Deputy Secretary General have had an opportunity to actually come to South Africa already and attend some of these meetings, and will be coming back again to be able to attend and continue to ensure there's alignment between what is happening at the G20 and what is happening at the multilateral platforms under the United Nations.
And the support that the UN is getting from other member states?
Yes, definitely. So the UN works with all member states, collaborates very fully and constructively, and gets support and provides also support to member states around the world. And this is really something that is needed now more than ever, when multilateral cooperation to deal with the multiple challenges that we're facing as humanity remains quite relevant.
There is a threat that maybe the US might not come to South Africa to be part of this, but in many instances, President Cyril Ramaphosa has emphasized the importance of the US coming to South Africa and be part of this very important discussion about global finances. We are seeing the tariffs and the US, and then seeing BRICS as a threat, which is also another economic vehicle where South to South have come together in cooperation to see how they can come together in mitigating their financial issues and inclusiveness and so on.
It is important that all countries have a seat at the table and talk to each other. So participation from all countries in multilateral platforms is really, really important, particularly when we're talking about dealing with challenges that are facing humanity as a whole. So definitely we're looking forward to collaboration that includes all and everyone being at the table.
That was UN South Africa Country Coordinator Nelson Mafu speaking to Channel Africa's reporter Michael Mbewe.
Channel Africa and you have got something in common. The thirst for knowledge.
Now, Gabon has just completed a remarkable political turnaround. Just 3 years ago, the country was suspended from the Commonwealth following a military coup that ousted longtime leader President Ali Bongo. Well, that coup, led by General Brice Oligui Nguema, disrupted Gabon's newly established relationship with the Commonwealth, having only joined the 56-nation bloc in 2022, and that's despite no historical links to Britain. Well, fast forward to 2025, and the country has taken significant steps towards restoring democratic constitutional referendum and national elections earlier this year paved the way for Gabon's reinstatement as a full member of the Commonwealth. Now, this development not only signals a return to democratic norms, but also raises questions about the direction Gabon is headed politically, economically, and diplomatically. To help us unpack Gabon's shifting political landscape and what it means for the country's future, we're now joined by Donald Taladzi, who's a Gabonese political analyst. Thank you for joining us and welcome to the program.
Good morning, Peter Ndoro, and thank you to the viewers as well.
So Gabon has been through quite a lot in a short few years, given the decades before of some kind of Bongo certainty.
Can you repeat the question, Peter? I didn't hear you properly there.
I was just saying that Gabon in a few years has gone through quite a lot after decades of Bongo rule.
Yeah, absolutely. The Bongo family or the Bongo regime ran the country for over, one will say over 50 years, over 56 years. Omar Bongo was in power for over 43 years. And then the son took over for another 14 years. That's half a century, more than half a century in power for one family. That's what the people of Gabon have known for so long. And eventually, with the demise of the Bongo family, from power, the country took a big hit in a sense that it was a change that no one expected, especially coming from the current president, who's also a close family member worked for Mabongo as the bodyguard, and also later on became the chief of the Presidential Guard, which is the military unit that looks after the family, the president and his family. So yeah, tremendous changes in Gabon, and a lot of people in Gabon were very pleased because some of us only knew Omabongo and the Bongo family as the only rulers of the country, and these magnitude changes in Gabon came, I think, at the right time, especially when the country has known a lot of mismanagement, corruption, the abuse of power, and all those. So there was a lot of desperation from the people of Gabon, and the country now has embarked on a new path of socio-economic change and development. And I hope Brice Clotaire Oligui will be able to, confront these challenges and propel the country. On the real path of real change for the people of Gabon.
All right. Let's talk about this Commonwealth story, because it is interesting. A country that was a French colony and had nothing to do with Britain. Why did Gabon initially move to join the Commonwealth in 2022?
I think the idea came from the desire to diversify partners. Yes, Gabon is a colony of France. It's always been under the umbrella of France. But countries are now, especially on the African continent, are striving to, diversify their partners. Economically speaking, militarily speaking, because there is a need. Our former partners have come to be short in terms of delivering the expectation. Promised. So I think the main reason is the desire to diversify the partners, and that's why Gabon decided to join the Commonwealth with the idea of joining a grouping of countries that could offer alternative opportunities for the people of Gabon.
We saw Rwanda do the same, which was quite interesting. And I just wonder what the rest of Francophone Africa's reaction was to that move.
I'm not sure if there was any reaction. The only reaction could have been from France, seeing one of his most trusted partners. Let not discount that Gabon is a strategic country for France. Gabon hosts a French military base right at the airport, the only airport that you have in Libreville, and that's where the French military base is. It's a very strategic position. Gabon is one of the last countries where France still has a very, very strong hold. So for France, I think it was a shock to see Gabon moving towards the Commonwealth. They saw that as an attempt for Gabon to maybe challenge the authority of France, and that is why the relationship between Ali Bongo and France was very rocky. But things didn't deteriorate much because France has a lot of investment in Gabon, and Gabon being a very strategic country for France, they have to trade very carefully as well. So that's one explanation that I can provide with regard to how it was received. But as for the African countries, the neighbors of Gabon, I think there was just a muted attitude. There was no reaction officially or openly in the media or any kind of other sources of information. It was just muted. So yeah.
All right. So then the coup happened, and of course, I guess the Commonwealth probably felt that it had no option but to suspend Gabon, and that was just a year later.
Yeah, that's based on principles. When you belong to an organization, there are principles, there are rules, and amongst which coups are not accepted. Even the African Union suspended Gabon, because they believe that Gabon has violated one of the principles of the African Union. So the alternative was for Gabon to go back to democratic rule, and that is why it was very, very, very important for the election to take place. And Brice Clotaire Oligui felt the need not to wait, not to extend the transition to its full term of 2 years, decided then to host the election, have the election a bit earlier. And as we all know today, Gabon has been reinstated in the Commonwealth, been reinstated in the greater family of the African Union as well. So yeah, that was the only condition attached to Gabon rejoining the club of let me call it the Club of Nations. Yeah.
All right. So I mean, the coup leader is still the man in charge. What has he been able to do to get the Commonwealth to change their mind about him and the country?
I think what he's been able to do is to embrace democratic, not only elections, but democratic principles. You'll recall that during the transition, being a military government, the expectation was to see people being arrested right, left, and center. But there was no witch hunt. There was no political opponent in prison. It was a bit surprising to see a military regime not having people in prison, except for the main players, the Bongo family, though the Ali Bongo's wife and the son and their close associate. But those one, their cases is very unique because they were the main players when Ali Bongo was sick. These are the people that were running the country and doing all sort of things that we saw when they were arrested. A lot of money was discovered in their private houses, in bags, in safes. It was crazy for a country such as Gabon with so much socioeconomic challenges, and having people stealing money from the state at an industrial scale and hiding the money in their private houses because they couldn't take it to the bank. The bank will ask them where the money come from, how did they get access to it. So these are the people that were in jail, and some of them have been released. Ali Bongo's wife is now out of jail. The son is also out of jail, but some other one are still in jail. Yeah, so that was very unique, and in addition to that, coming back to going for elections and having free and fair elections as well. I think all those things played very well for President Ligingema. So much so that the Commonwealth and the African Union they felt they need that Gabon must be reinstated because they have played by the rules, set by these same organizations, in terms of democracy and how democracy should function. So, and also one thing that you must also take into consideration is the fact that during the transition, we could see Gabonese people were free to express their views on all issues, even criticizing the president, during the transition, and without fear of any reprisal. So that was very unique as well to watch. It's beautiful to see that Gabonese people had the liberty to express their views. They had the democratic rights being respected, even under a military rule. And I think all these things played in favor of President Ligingema, and going to elections as well, and the way in which the election went on, I think it's also played an important part as well for the reinstatement of Gabon in all these institutions.
So I guess, like Burkina Faso, this was a popularly supported coup. Is there genuine belief then that the referendum and elections were reflective of the will of the people in the country?
Absolutely. I mean, we saw the referendum was very well participated. The people of Gabon went out in big numbers and to change to choose the project of the constitution that was presented to them, and they supported it overwhelmingly. The election, we saw the numbers. I mean, it was almost like unbelievable, having elected a president to the tune of 94% of the vote. That's like, those are the kind of numbers we see in countries where democracy is not really applied, but in this case, opposition parties were allowed to do what they needed to do without fear of any, reprisal. the people of Gabon went out and willingly voted for the candidate of their choices. And then we saw the numbers, they were huge. And that's a reflection that the people of Gabon were really, gave the approval or the approval to the process and to the candidate. So there was no, and we saw even when the results were announced, there was no single opposition party that went to the street to contest the validity of the result. They were all muted, they were all quiet because they knew it was a reflection of reality on the ground.
So politicians will give a speak of one kind or another and try and sell a story. But what I find in real life is that a good indicator of perceived change is business activity. How has Gabon started recovering, and are we seeing investors saying, yeah, we believe this story, and they're bringing their money into Gabon?
Absolutely. Right now, I haven't been to Gabon for the past 2 or 3 months, but the information that we have, I saw a video recently where the president was on the ground. He's been going onto the ground to make sure that some of the projects that started during the transition, are completed in time. And he's been doing that, and all this is being documented through social media. We can see the videos, and if you go to LinkedIn, if you go to WhatsApp, even Facebook, so everything is posted there. So in terms of socio-economic activities, one could say yes, there is a lot of movement. We also saw the president making a statement, say, Gabon is the second biggest producer of manganese in the world, I think after South Africa. And the president saying that from 2029, Gabon will not export raw material anymore. The manganese must be processed in Gabon to put more value into the mineral, and so that it can be sold at a higher value for the benefit of Gabon and the people of Gabon. That's a very strong statement. And the French government or the company that extract manganese in Gabon is a French company, Eramet, and they they were really unhappy. They were a talk show in France where one of the leaders say how Gabon is going to do it. They lack infrastructures and all those kind of stuff. They kind of dismissing the idea that Gabon could process manganese in Gabon. And at a very later stage, we saw the very same leaders coming to Gabon and say, we're now agreeing to transform manganese in Gabon because the president made it, his decision was final, and they have to agree to that. And then an agreement or an MOU has been signed for them to make sure that come 2029, manganese is processed in Gabon. That's a very big change. Also, we saw when the president went to America, he was invited with 4 other countries, I think Senegal, Guinea, and like the president of Liberia. And then he spoke to Trump. I don't know if you saw the video. He looked at Trump in the eyes, and he said to Trump, you are welcome in Gabon. Come and invest in Gabon. If you don't come, other people will come. And he was very blunt. He said to Trump, very pragmatic, just like you. I'm a general. I like when things move. I like when things are static. I'm not happy about it. So things must move, just like you like making things move. So I'm inviting you to Gabon, but when you come to Gabon, make sure we're going to transform everything locally in Gabon, not elsewhere. That was the statement.
We're running out of time, but just one final question. And if you could be brief with your answer. So the reality is we still have the military in governance. And I'm just wondering, as positive as this story is there any risk or challenges that remain, particularly with things like human rights and maybe just the outlook in general?
In terms of human rights, there is nothing that I can point out right now to say human rights in Gabon is not respected. There is no evidence to that effect. I know the current president, the former first lady has gone to France to make open a case against the government of Gabon on the basis that she was tortured in jail. I flatly dismiss that because there's no evidence. I mean, she's a white lady. There's nothing on her body that could show that she was tortured, and there's nothing like that. She hasn't provided anything. So also, you made a statement there saying the military is still in charge. I don't think so. We've moved away from that. The military, the soldiers have gone back to the barracks, and yes, some of the soldiers, the president is a soldier by formation, by training, but he's no longer a soldier. He's no longer wearing the uniform. And one minister also, former soldier, also became a minister. I mean, they've all dumped the uniform.
So the transition is full. It's a civilian government in your view?
It's a civilian government, 100%.
Okay. Donald, it's been a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much indeed for your insights on this remarkable story, which is Gabon.
Thank you so much, Peter Ndoro, and thank you to your viewers as well.
Thank you so much for your time. That's Donald Taladzi, a Gabonese political analyst, taking us through Gabon, which has been reinstated in the Commonwealth and is now enjoying a transition to civilian government and democracy. And that, as we've just been hearing, has been recognized by the Commonwealth, welcoming them back into the family after more than a year suspension. It's 8:30, which means it's time for your news headlines with Nolutando Buthelezi.
SABC News headlines. The African perspective.
The Forum for South Africa has lauded the appointment of Buti Manamela as the country's new Minister of Higher Education and Training. The Forum says that it is confident that Manamela will understand the complexity of the department. South Africa's Deputy Minister of Water and Sanitation, Sello Setlo, says that the department can make the budget and technical capacity to upgrade wastewater plants to deal with contaminants of emerging concern like ARVs now detected in water. And the head of the World Health Organization, Tedros Ghebreyesus, has demanded that Israel release a member of the agency's staff who he says was seized by Israeli troops during an offensive in central Gaza yesterday. I'll have the details at the top of the hour.
SABC News headlines. The African perspective.
Right, let's find out what's happening in the world of sports. Here's Fikile Lingwati with our update.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
And we begin with football news this hour, where the Confederations of African Football CAF Secretary General Veron Musengo Omba expects a record attendance at the next month's African Nations Championship CHAN in Kenya, Uganda and Tanzania. The competition is set to kick off on the 2nd of August at the Benjamin Mkapa Stadium in Dar es Salaam, where Tanzania faces Burkina Faso. Musengo Omba says anticipation in the rest of the continent is at fever pitch as the countdown to the competition continues. The Secretary General further praised the three countries for the exemplary preparation for the tourney, noting that it is a learning experience for co-hosts of future competitions. The national football team Harambee Stars step on the Kasarani turf on the 3rd of August to face the Democratic Republic of Congo. On to cricket news, Proteas Beta Corbin Bosch has reiterated the team's aim for more ruthlessness in their approach to their final match of the T20 Tri-Series against New Zealand today. They face the Black Caps for the second time, having lost to the same team last week. Although they collected 2 wins against host Zimbabwe at the Harare Sports Club, Bosch believes they were just not tight enough in their performance at certain stages last week, which ultimately cost the team the game by 21 runs.
I think it's something that we pride ourselves to try to be ruthless at all stages of the game, and I think we put our foot off the pedal a little bit in the game, especially in the field. I think we were a little bit lackadaisy towards the back end of that game and just let through some easy runs, and maybe a costly drop chance that may have swung the game even more in our favour, where we could have been a bit more ruthless. But I think we have addressed it. I think in the last game, like bat and ball, we were pretty ruthless. So I think we must just do more of the same.
Bosch admitted that the World Test Championship last month has instilled a new sense of belief into the team, which will also give them an extra edge heading into today's game. He says the big win over Australia at Lord's showed that anyone is beatable in any format of the game.
I think there's that. I think it's that quiet belief amongst the players that we can get it done. As you said, the WTC showed that we are a world-class outfit. We can beat anyone in the world, and I think that's slowly starting to filter into all avenues of our cricket. And I think it's an exciting time for cricket in the country. And as I said, there's so much more talent that's left to be explored in our country itself. So it's an exciting time to be a part of SA cricket at the moment.
Some more rugby cricket news. Rwanda's women's national cricket team kicked off their campaign at the 2025 ICC Women's T20 World Cup Africa Qualifier Division 2 with a dominant 10-wicket victory over Lesotho at Botswana Cricket Association Oval. In what turned out to be a one-sided affair, Lesotho won the toss and chose to bat first but struggled against Rwanda's sharp bowling attack. They were bowled out for just 23 runs in 10.1 overs, with none of their batters reaching double figures. For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, please do send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +2711 714 4459. This is Channel Africa Sport with me, Figile Lingwati.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African perspective. This Mandela Month, we honor his belief that education is the most powerful weapon to change the world.
Education is one of the most important weapons in a country.
Catch us on DSTV Bouquet 802. From Cape to Cairo, Dakar to Dar es Salaam, rise and shine with Peter Ndoro and Asanda Beda on Channel Africa.
Right, it's time for a final look at business, what's been happening across the continent and some of it beyond. And taking us through that is Nosipo Zuma.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
Thank you, Peter. Good morning. In your business news this hour, FlySafair says it had to cancel 26 flights, which account to 13% of its operations amid the wage strike by pilots, which started yesterday. FlySafair pilots have rejected the airline's 5.7% wage increase offer, sticking to their demand of a 10.5% hike. FlySafair insists that it has been negotiating in good faith under the process led by the CCMA. Chief Marketing Officer at FlySafair, Kirby Garden.
The reality is that's a 10% increase on basic pay. Pilots' remuneration is quite complex. It's nuanced. There are flight pay things, there are allowances that are considered, there are bonuses. And actually, when one looks at the full cost to company increase that they are demanding, it's 20.1%. Now, these are individuals who are well paid. They are competitively paid compared to other airlines. They're in the top 1% of earners. A captain will earn between 1.8 and 2.3 million rand a year.
Agriculture experts have urged the South African government to fund small-scale farmers in rural areas for the building of proper structural kraals to prevent the movement of animals and slow the spread of foot and mouth disease. The country currently has more than 200 cases of foot and mouth disease, with the KwaZulu-Natal province being the worst affected. Agriculture expert Wandile Sihlobo says the sector plays a critical role in growing the economy as it is the most inclusive sector. Sihlobo says that the root cause of the repeated foot and mouth disease outbreaks needs to be urgently looked into.
For small and medium-scale farmers that usually sell their cattle in auctions, selling to certain feedlots, now with the limited movement of animals, as well as just the risk of a disease spread that makes everyone to be extra vigilant, that means then that those markets dry up. And that causes all of these difficulties, which is why I think perhaps as a country, we may have to reach a point where we ask ourselves, is it the time for South Africa to start applying a widespread national vaccination approach when it comes to foot and mouth disease.
Nigeria's economy has expanded by 3.13% year-on-year in the first quarter of 2025. The expansion comes following the rebasing of its gross domestic product, which is the GDP, to better align with the current economic landscape. Now, according to the National Bureau of Statistics, the country's economy grew to $243.66 billion after the rebasing. The NBS says several economic sectors, including marine, fishing, shipping and ports, arts, culture, tourism and e-commerce have grown significantly since the last GDP rebasing in 2014, warranting their inclusion. Zimbabwe's exports of spodumene concentrate, a lithium-bearing mineral essential for battery production, has surged to 30% in the first half of 2025, despite weaker global lithium prices. According to statistics from the Mineral Marketing Corporation of Zimbabwe, the country exported 586,197 metric tons of spodumene concentrate between January and June, compared to 451,824 metric tons during the same period last year. Prices of lithium used in batteries to power renewable energy technologies have tumbled nearly 90% over the past 2 years, mainly due to oversupply, but producers remain positive about the metal's long-term prospects amid a global push towards cleaner energy sources and electric vehicles. And finally, oil prices have declined as concerns the brewing trade war between major crude consumers. The US and the European Union will curb fuel demand growth by lowering economic activity, weighed on investor sentiment. Brent crude futures fell 52 US cents to $68.69 a barrel. US West Texas Intermediate crude was at $66.69 a barrel, down 51 cents. Both benchmarks settled slightly lower on Monday. Your financial indicators: $1 US in Nigeria is trading at 1,530 naira. In Botswana is 13 pula 30. Kenya, the dollar is trading at 128 shillings 71, and in Zambia it's 23 kwacha 08. The BRICS countries: $1 in Brazil is trading at 5 real 579. Russia is 78 rubles 44. India is 86 rupees 14, China is 7 yuan 17, and in South Africa $1 is trading at 17 rand 68. $1 is trading at 74 pence to the British pound and 85 to the euro. Looking at commodities, gold is trading at $3,390 and platinum at $1,447 per ounce. The price of Brent crude oil is at $68.64 a barrel. Now, for any business news stories you would like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11 714 459. Channel Africa Business, I'm Nosipo Suma.
Business News on Channel Africa. The African Perspective. Your morning companion with the stories that matter. This is Rise and Shine on Channel Africa.
The South African Broadcasting Corporation, SABC Sport, brings you Chasing the Sun, a powerful 5-part documentary series about the country's national rugby team, the Springboks, telling the rousing tale of their path to redemption and ultimate World Cup glory in 2019. Starting 13 July at 7:30 p.m. Central African Time on SABC2, tune in every Sunday for the highs, the heartache, and the heroes that made rugby history. Stream each chapter on SABC Plus, anytime, anywhere, no subscription needed. Don't miss Chasing the Sun this Sunday at 7:30 p.m. Central African Time on SABC2. Be there when history shines.
Mornings made better with Peter and Asanda on Rise and Shine, weekdays 6 till 9 Central African Time on Channel Africa.
8:43 Central African Time. Let's continue with news making headlines in and around our continent. And now, with the country where we're broadcasting live from in Johannesburg, South Africa, they will use the G20 platform to advocate for an inclusive global economic order in collaboration with AU institutions. This is according to the Deputy Minister of International Relations and Cooperation, Thandi Muraga. She was speaking at the opening ceremony of the 5th Ordinary Sitting of the 6th Parliament of the Pan-African Parliament in Midrand, South Africa. South Africa will host the 20 heads of state and government summit of the Group of 20 in November. Nhlanhla Mahlangu has more.
Hosted under the AU theme for 2025, Justice for Africans and People of African Descent through Reparations, the 5th Ordinary Sitting of the 6th Parliament of the Pan-African Parliament officially got underway on Monday. In her opening remarks, South Africa's Deputy Minister of International Relations and Cooperation, Thandi Muraga, said the hosting of the G20 for 2025 is an opportunity that positions the country as a critical player in global economic governance and to prioritize issues such as sustainable development, climate change, global trade, and the debt crisis.
We are going to utilize our presidency of the G20 to call for the reforms of the multilateral funding institutions in terms of these issues of debt management. And we are going to do that, of course, supported by the AU, because it is only in this year's G20 that we have admitted the AU as a permanent member of the G20, which is a platform that will provide all of us a space to ensure an alignment in terms of issues of priority that we need to drive together as the people of the continent of Africa.
In light of the looming tariffs imposed by the US on several African countries, the president of the Pan-African Parliament, Chief Fortune Charumbira, called for the unity of the continent. A 30% tariff on goods and produce exported into the United States is set to come into effect from the 1st of August.
South Africa became a victim of these tariffs on very false allegations. False allegations. And then they said we are imposing some tariffs. We need to stand in solidarity with South Africa, because one of the allegations was that you are taking land by force. This is the weakness of South Africa. You see, Africa is not united. Europe, they fought wars, you know, First World War, Second World War. But now they have a very strong economic bloc and united. Africa, we are still divided. So when your brother or sister is attacked, the way it was done on South Africa, surely we should stand, especially as PAP, in solidarity with South Africa, that no, you can't do this to South Africa. Being punished about their land, you have taken land, we should stand closer with South Africa.
Speaking through an interpreter, guest of honor, Ambassador of Angola in Ethiopia and chairperson of the African Union's Permanent Representative Committee, Professor Miguel Cesar Domingos Bembe, commended the Parliament, saying it has a huge role to play in addressing challenges the continent faces.
The Pan-African Parliament, as the third organ of the African Union, has a key role to play, namely to establish itself as an inclusive forum, a space for discussion and participation where the voices and perspectives of all Africans, including those from the diaspora, are heard and valued without discrimination or exclusion. Secondly, to promote institutional and popular debate on the subject of reparations and other situations of concern to African citizens. Thirdly, draw up concrete and guiding proposals to be submitted to the highest authorities on the African continent, as well as strengthen ties with the African diaspora and racial justice movements around the world, and finally, to monitor the fulfillment of commitments made at continental level.
A debate on the state of governance, peace and security in Africa is expected to take place on Tuesday. Reporting for Channel Africa, I am Nhlanhla Mahlangu in Johannesburg.
The new governing party in Botswana, the Botswana National Front, or BNF, is on a charm offensive to foster unity with neighboring countries. Both the Economic Freedom Fighters and the African National Congress political parties were invited to attend the party's first conference in Palape this past weekend. The BNF came to power after the 2024 elections, overtaking the Botswana Democratic Party that had governed the country for more than 5 decades. Bunolo Maribe reports.
Duma Boko, a lawyer, exchanged his gowns for occupying the highest office in Botswana. As a human rights activist, Boko has always aspired to see a united Africa. He demonstrated this by inviting both the ANC and the EFF to the conference.
Economic freedom fighters, the African National Congress, all of them must step up in order to step back and reflect on the existential threat that faces their country and the rest of the region, and indeed the continent. And when they do, I hope they rise above and beyond some of these differences.
EFF leader Julius Malema was once declared persona non grata in Botswana after he questioned the government on its relationship with the United States, particularly on its military activities, which also led to his expulsion from the ANC. However, since then, he is free to visit Botswana, and while he didn't attend the conference, the party's deputy president, Godrich Godi, was there.
We are afraid, Comrade President. The military base of the United States in Botswana is a threat to the existence of South Africa, because the economic freedom fighters will take over that country in no time. And by that time, they will still be in the soil of Botswana, and it will take them a second to bomb the union buildings of the EFF government.
The ANC, that has a long-standing relationship with the Botswana Democratic Party, had to come to terms with the recent political change in Botswana, and now has to accommodate the BNF as its sister party. This is ANC NEC member Andile Lungisa.
We must be able to speak with one voice. We must be able to transform the institutions of international government at the international level, especially the UN. We must be able to go as south to south, the global south, as a force to transform those institutions. Those institutions, they need your leadership. That's why we're here as the ANC, to confirm that we'll work with the organization.
The ANC will be hosting a variety of liberation organizations and friends of the party on the continent this weekend for the Liberation Movement Summit in Johannesburg. The BDB and BNF are expected to attend. Bonolo Maribe, SABC News, Johannesburg.
Right, let's take a look at this story now, which keeps us in South Africa. A South African non-profit organization, Waves for Change, is drawing global attention with its innovative new program called Take 5. And this is a toolkit that's designed to help children and adolescents manage toxic stress through sport, creative expression and play. Though officially launching this month, Take 5 has been 5 years in the making and is already being implemented in conflict-affected countries like South Sudan and Somalia, with backing from partners like UNICEF. Sisi Sagalo spoke to some of the people behind the project and filed this report.
The Take 5 model is a simple 5-step teaching framework. It is used by trained facilitators or sports coaches to create safe community spaces where children and adolescents growing up in high-stress environments can play, be, and grow. The international manager of Take 5, Derek Daniels, says they work with adolescents and children from underserved communities.
Here's what the research actually says, that 90% of adolescents live in low and middle income countries. And a third of that population, that adolescent population, they're faced with what we call really multi-dimensional poverty. In other words, it's not only poor from a financial point of view, but they have lack of education. They don't have access to resources. They really struggle with life in general. And very often the children are referred to us by schools, by social workers, sometimes by courts, because they have problems with society and dealing with social issues. And we run these programs with them in Cape Town. We do it on the beach using surfing and our Take 5 program. And we actually work with them over a complete year, 11-month program.
The Department of Cultural Affairs and Sport in the Western Cape province of South Africa has also embraced the Take 5 model. The Deputy Director of the MOD program, Hilton Stroud, says they have incorporated it in their existing program, which he elaborates on.
We, as the MOD program, which is the Mass Participation, Opportunity, Access and Development program, which is an after-school program, which operates in 315 schools in the Western Cape for around 70,000 learners who participate in the program. We are implementing the Take 5 program within that space, where we give activities such as sports, arts and culture, and life skills. And the synergy between ourselves and Ways for Change, and especially the Take 5 program, is that we see the need to implement our play activities with theory-based and research strong activities which deals with protective factors which help kids that come from underserved communities who are affected by violence and all various social ills. So working with Ways for Change has been really a positive initiative. We've learned from each other, and I think they have gotten outcomes that have worked, and we have also definitely embedded the Take 5 program in our daily activities.
United Nations Children's Fund, UNICEF in South Sudan, a country ravaged by war, have also seen the benefits of the Take 5 model. Head of Child Protection at UNICEF South Sudan, Brendan Ross, says they partnered with Waves for Change to implement the program in Somalia. Now it's been running for 4 years in South Sudan.
One of the defining features of war and conflict is that young people tend to, there tends to be violence all around them. There's not enough food. There's not enough safety, and to be safe and to get enough food and to get shelter, you have to join one of these armed forces or armed groups. And so really, what this methodology does is it shows boys and young men in particular, but also women, that there is another way. That through forming positive pro-social friendships, by playing games, by simply having fun, and then by learning vocational skills, by learning other livelihoods, you can manage to transition through to adulthood in very, very safe and meaningful ways.
Seymour Hart is a coach within the Take 5 program. He's from the crime-ridden area in the Western Cape province of South Africa. He affirms that the model has worked for the adolescents that he's coaching.
On a daily basis, it's a crime-ridden area. We expect domestic violence. We expect gangsterism. You can expect premature pregnancies where girls are concerned, boys that fall into alcoholism, and then also drugs, gangsterism. So it's like the dominant effect I live in. So the program is amazing. I mean, it's accepted amazing by us as coaches to take and help the community we live in, because when a child reaches adolescence or puberty, the child knows how to handle itself now through the program that we can use with them. And I mean, the opportunity the child might miss by not attending or not having the Take 5 program is gravely negative to their lives.
Meanwhile, the international manager of Take 5, Derek Daniels, says they've been receiving positive feedback about the program. For Channel Africa, I'm Sisi Sekhalo in Johannesburg, South Africa.
Now, just before we go, I'm going to take you back in history. A couple of things that happened across the continent on this day. 1960, Ghana became a republic. The country's official constitution took place. Now, Ghana had gained its independence from Britain in 1957 on March the 6th, you'll remember. Officially becoming a republic, though, July the 22nd, 1960. Kwame Nkrumah was sworn in as the first president of the country, marking a significant step in African self-governance and anti-colonial progress. And Ghana has been quite a story ever since then. We've seen presidents come and go, and even military coups. Flight Lieutenant Jerry Rawlings, and he became a very popular president for a long, long time. Okay, so that's your look at today in history.
And that's how we say goodbye for this Tuesday's edition of Africa Rise and Shine. Catch me tomorrow, 6 till 9. Peter won't be here doing other things, but we'll do it again tomorrow, so stay tuned.
Yes, indeed. Have an awesome day, everybody. Take care. The news is next with Nolutando Buthelezi.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
Thanks, Peter. Good morning. Top stories this hour. Forum for South Africa Lord's appointment of Buti Manamela as Higher Education Minister, and HWO head demands release of agency staff member. The Forum for South Africa has lauded the appointment of Buti Manamela as the country's new Minister of Higher Education and Training. The Forum says that it is confident that Manamela will understand the complexity of the department, unlike the former Minister Dr. Nkabane. National leader of Forum for South Africa, Teboho Moshilumbane, has labelled Nkabane as an arrogant minister who failed to make significant progress.
Dr. Nkabane was a very arrogant minister simply because she did not understand the sophisticated department. As a result, she was more defensive than being proactive, and her attitude did not help the department to progress.
South Africa's Deputy Minister of Water and Sanitation, Sello Seitlolo, says that the department can make the budget and technical capacity to upgrade wastewater plants to deal with contaminants of emerging concern like ARVs now detected in water. This follows a